morning. Good day, and how are you?
Hello. If I don't see you later, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Is that the Truman Show? Okay.
What
Are you ready?
Movie that was, huh?
Oh my gosh, yeah. When people watch it now, they don't have any idea of how groundbreaking that was and what a weird thing it was.
Yeah.
In '97, because we all didn't live on camera. But are you ready to predict the future?
I am ready to predict the future. I'm living in the future as
Yes.
I know our audience knows I broke my hand about a month ago, and I had surgery on Friday, so I am now bionic. I've got a little piece of.
We can rebuild him.
I don't know what it is on the X-ray. It looks like, I swear to God, it looks like a circuit board.
We have the technology.
I'm hoping. I mean, I'm telling you, when they say, the first ones that come out and say, okay, we're going to actually let you connect to the internet via a plug in your neck. Yeah. I'll be there. I will do that. I want to be plugged in 24/7 so that I can,
you and me are so opposite. It's so funny. I would run away from that so fast.
Joseph's watching the Sabres tonight. Good luck, Joseph.
All right.
The Kings, unfortunately.
Yes. Hello, everyone that's joining us.
They're done for the year, so
I guess we're all excited. This is our last week of Generations. We are finishing our first book in the book club. Whoop whoop.
Woo! And it's only week 13?
Week 13. So that's exactly how I had it planned. 13 weeks for each book.
Wow,
yeah.
Look at you.
I know, right? Doing big things. Yep, it worked out.
Now is the time to start planning the rest of your life.
It is.
You're right there. You wow. That's awesome.
Yep. Well, I've been going through the numbers, and each week we have about 500 to 600 people in this book club. They're not all right here with us at live, but that's how many we get on the replays in the section. So we have a nice little size book club here. And I think it's going to get even bigger with our next book, but we're not there yet.
Okay, and you know what? If you're out there and you're not watching us live, join us live. But I know comment in the below thing, and I'll read them and respond, and
absolutely,
sure Natalie reads them and responds. I know Natalie reads them, and we're here. We want to talk to you guys. I love this stuff.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun, and I'm really really enjoying this, and. I think that those of us that have been here so far are gonna, once we get to the fourth turning, are really gonna understand how important Generations was to understanding the theory and what comes next, and how Strauss and Howe built this and how it's played out. I'm really excited. Last week for Generations, we are doing chapter 13, which is completing the Millennial Cycle. So this is the chapter that we've been waiting for. This is the one where they take all of the information and theory that they've put forth in the first 12 chapters, and they're going to put it to use. They're going to apply it to the current cycle that we're in. And one thing really quick, I do want to apologize. I'm really dark this evening in my shot. My ring light broke, so I don't have hardly any light. So I do apologize. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm in brightness here. So
yes, I am in the darkness, and you are the light.
Well, I guess we now have the name of our podcast.
Yeah, 13 is my lucky number. That's awesome, Rachel. We're the 13ers, and I love that. And it's that unlucky. We're the generation born on Friday the 13th, which I promise you I will get t-shirts. I will get some merch done in the near future. So before we get started, I did want to show you all that there was a massive hailstorm in my area on Sunday night. Like my dad, who is 73, said, I have never seen anything like this in my life. It was quite scary. We have a metal roof on the house, and when I tell you that this sounded like, it sounded like the world was ending. It was ridiculous. My brand new car that I bought got the rear tail lights busted out from the hail. Let me show you all what this looks like. We got about 2-inch golf ball size hail, and it was relentless for about 20 minutes. Like it's like what we call gully washers where I'm at, where it's like rain just comes down just out of the the ether for like 20 minutes and just a gully washer. But this was a hail gully washer.
Yeah.
And I it was unreal. And it was just my town hit apparently, and every car that was not in a garage has all their windshields busted out, their windows busted out. I was lucky with the way my car was parked that I only got my taillights busted out. Everybody's roof is destroyed. So anyway, it's been a crazy few days. So I just wanted to put that out there that we had some crazy weather, but of course it has nothing to do with climate change, right, Grendelson?
Right.
I just had to poke the bear.
No, you did that earlier. That's all right.
I know. I can't help it.
Is that still covered under insurance, or is that active?
Oh yes. Like my insurance company called me before I even made a claim. It's this whole area has been awash with insurance adjusters the last 48 hours. They're everywhere.
They flew them in on a cargo plane.
They did. They were ready. They're like, holy shit!
Like, we're putting up a temporary headquarters here.
They really should.
And we're erecting a statue of the lizard outside, so people know where to go. That's crazy. I saw some footage of hailstorms over the weekend, and I was wow. I was blown away. I've never seen anything remote.
Me neither. I mean, it was wild. It's so hard to explain how loud it was. Like
I saw the footage, and you're talking like the balls of ice coming down at 30, 40, 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, the size of golf balls or bigger. Yeah.
I mean, you get hit in the head with that, and you go to the hospital or morgue. So, yeah, it was crazy, and it happened at about 3:30 in the morning. Woke you up. My cat is an outside cat. Well, he's indoor, outdoor, so he comes in to eat and hang out, but usually he's outside. So Madale was outside. Oof. And so I got up, went out there, tried to holler for him, but it was so loud you couldn't hear me say anything. Like it was like it's like you were standing in a waterfall where you scream and you can't hear, So but finally I found him and he came inside, but it was wild. It was quite the experience. Wow. So I'm just. Well, I hope that's a one-off and not a recurring event. And pardon me while I eat my mashed potatoes. No. All right. The time came up on me so fast. I've been editing my next video. My next video is probably going to be like an hour and a half to 2 hours long. Wow. I have been deep in editing for like 48 hours straight. Like I have not slept. I have not you're looking at me fresh off a 48-hour editing stint, and I'm not done yet. I'm really excited about it. I've been doing nothing for 4 weeks. I read a comic book this weekend. Not a comic book. I read an entire comic series this weekend. Oh wow! Well, that's kind of cool. 140. Good use of time. Yeah, I thought so. There's some great stuff out there. Yeah, I read Invincible this weekend. Oh, nice. Yeah. That's it's a show on Amazon right now. Okay, gotcha. It's based on a comic that ran for like 15 years. It's good stuff. Good. I haven't seen anything new in so long, but we're getting a little off topic. This is going to be a big night. We have a lot to go over. This is a huge chapter. So I kind of want to go ahead and dive in as much as I love talking about what we got going on. But no, let's do it. This is a paragraph in the page 375. I have notes all over this book. Just covered in notes. And so I'm going to read through a lot of this, and we're just going to kind of go bit by bit, and I'm going to go as long as I possibly can until my equipment breaks down or, or the dogs and the cats want to eat. Yeah. Or we catch up. Yeah. All right. Completing the Millennial Cycle. Whoop, whoop. We did it. We did it, guys. We made it. We're here. We are here. I'm going to start reading, and then we're going to skip through the chapters how I have it marked.
And we'll go from there. If you have anything that you want to add as I go or as we pause, just say something, holler at me, and we'll talk about it. History is full of sparks. Some have blazed for a moment and then died. Others have touched off conflagrations out of all proportion to the sparks themselves. Suppose authorities seriously suspected that a band of terrorists linked to a fanatically anti-American nation had smuggled a nuclear bomb into New York City. How would America respond?
They'd send John McClane.
They'd send John McClane. Or another question is, how would they respond if, I don't know, 4 planes flew into towers and, other places? How would America respond? To answer this question, we would need to know when this event is taking place, specifically during which constellation era. Suppose the terrorist threat had arisen during the last awakening era, say around 1970. At that time, it would surely have unleashed raging national cross-currents of secular confidence and spiritual rebellion. Almost any official response would have been intensely controversial. GI leaders in their 50s, acting as hubristic crisis managers, would have played down the threat by assuring the public that daily life need not be disturbed, while working to control the situations through vigorous technical means. Angry coming-of-age baby boomers would have organized behind a variety of symbolic and emotional responses, accusing the U.S. government of lying one way or the other, and blaming it all on some monstrous institutional plot. Caught in between, the 30ish silent would have puzzled for reasons why any foreigner could hate us so much. Evacuation would have taken place in a mood of collective hysteria and disbelief. America would have been at war with itself more than with the perpetrators. Alternatively, suppose this nuclear terrorism were to happen sometime in the early 1990s, in the middle of the current inner-driven era. By then, the span of roughly a quarter century will have entirely reshaped the likely national response, which would now stress caution, conciliation, and deferral. Silent cabinet officers would consult allies, form committees, review options, and invite full public discussion. After initiating multilateral negotiations, leaders would generally try to wait things out. The crisis would frustrate but not anger boomers, who would trade philosophic remarks about how it was bound to happen sooner or later, and it would hardly ruffle young 13ers, many of whom might rush toward the city to sell or volunteer transportation to families wanting to leave. Official evacuation plans would be expensive and overcomplicated and would elicit little public confidence they would work as intended. Most people would stay calm and simply make their own plans. Chances are the nation would squeeze by the immediate threat undamaged, but leave its underlying causes either solved or at best mildly ameliorated.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next. Finally.
This is the one I had highlighted.
Yeah, this is the one this is the big one. I just wanted to give I'm not going to read every word of this chapter, but I just wanted to give a little backstory before we get to this one. Finally, suppose the terrorists were to strike during the upcoming crisis constellation sometime around the year 2020. Once again, a quarter turn in the generational constellation would prompt a response that from today's perspective seems unrecognizable. Boomer leaders in their 60s would neither hide nor ponder the rumor. Instead, they would exaggerate the threat. Who said there was a bomb in only one city? And tie it to a larger sense of global crisis. Unifying the nation as a community, these leaders would define the enemy broadly and demand its total defeat, regardless of the human and economic sacrifices required. Evacuation would be mannerly, with cooperative millennial youth seeking and accepting orders from elders, and with pragmatic midlife 13ers making sure no time is wasted. The nation would act promptly and decisively as a single organism. For better or for worse, Americans would be far more inclined than in other eras to risk catastrophe to achieve what its leaders would define as a just outcome. And all we have to do is substitute terrorist strike for the virus that shall not be named on YouTube. I think you can say it now, but anyways.
I didn't know there was a prohibited. But okay.
Yeah, no, used to you couldn't talk about if you mentioned COVID on during the pandemic era, they would demonetize your videos, they'd take you down, they'd censor you if you talked about COVID, especially if you talked about it in any kind of question way of the narrative. So I knew a lot of people that got their channels taken down and deplatformed and stuff over that.
Crazy.
So you can say it now. Woo woo! Yay!
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed from this is that, like when they were talking about the '90s response, I really don't think Strauss and Howe expected there to be a boomer president in the '90s.
No,
I don't think they expected that at all. I think they
no one did.
Yeah, and Clinton was very young when he was elected. He was in his early 40s, I think, because him and JFK, I think, are the youngest, two of the youngest. And so they were really they were expecting a GI or a silent to be in the presidency in the 90s. So that they missed that, but I mean, who could have known that? But that has a little bit that does affect how things, the response to things and stuff. If you have a different generation as your president, when it comes to, how you're responding to things, would things have been different in the 90s if we would have had a Bush or a Dole or somebody like that instead of a Clinton? Would our country have responded the same? Who knows?
That's a deep subject.
I know it is. I like deep subjects.
I don't even know.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to say because you can't look at the economic, like what would have been
right.
Because the 90s were all about economics and
yep,
and movement and social classes.
That would be a fun alternative history show to watch, though. Because I haven't got to watch the other that we talked about last week because it's been a crazy week. But it'd be fun to write something where somebody else wins an election and it's a different generation, based on Strauss and Howe theory. That'd be a very interesting.
There's a whole cottage industry in science fiction books of alternate histories.
I love that stuff. Yeah, I need to dive into that.
One of the guys who was really big into it for a long time was our buddy George R.R. Martin from the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah,
he dabbled in that a lot before he did that one. So yeah, there's a ton of it out there. Mostly, a lot of it is Civil War related. Surprisingly,
interesting.
There's a lot of stuff about what with the South winning.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. And I know there's some stuff out there like The Man in the High Castle and stuff with the alternate World War II, but it is very interesting to think about.
Yeah, there was another one that came out in the 90s, Fatherland, that was
Fatherland.
Yeah, I can't remember the author, but he wrote a couple of them too about the alternate history. The same thing happened where the Nazis won World War II, but it was way different. Man in the High Castle is a Philip K. Dick book, and it's a Philip K. Dick book.
Right.
He is, if you've read any of his stuff, it's very esoteric. It's very out there. It's very deep. And like I said, he's the guy who thought that his entire life was living in a Roman centurion in the 3rd century BC. So, yeah, you're right. Harry Turtledove is also huge in alternative history. I can't remember the other guy too. There's one other guy who's big.
Have any of these, from what you know of, is the idea of different leaders or different generations ever even a thought in these, how that would influence? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because the things change, especially the stuff I've read, the World War II stuff, where the Germans won. Yeah, the whole 50s and 60s generations are completely different because America is completely different. It was occupied by, Japan and Germany in those stories. So there's a definite sense of there's no boomer thing happening at all because the population was decimated. So they're so wildly off kilter too, some of them.
Right. Well, they can't, it's just imagination. It's just imagination land.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's keep reading. Where did I go here? Because I have so many notes. Yeah, my notes was COVID was the nuclear bomb they talk about. Lockdown.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had lockdowns. We had 80% of people that took at least one vaccine.
Yeah, no, it was definitely. I mean, it was a global event, though. It wasn't just a United States.
It was, but we reacted as a nation or as states, I guess. Yeah. I mean, like there was quite the, it was such a weird time. It was such. Like people were like, our government literally went on TV and places were like, we're shutting everything down. Yeah. Deal with it. And everybody was like, okay. And it was like, hold on. Like, I don't know. It's just wild to me that our society just accepted it and just everybody shut down and that was it. And then it was like impossible to try to get back to the before times because it was, is it 2 weeks? Is it 2 months? Is it a year? But the way people acted, I think, is what I'm not trying to get into the politics of it all, but it's just the way our government acted and then the way our population acted. They pretty much said that here in the book. Regardless of the human and economic sacrifices required, we were gonna stop this. We were gonna do it, and we were gonna,
and I think for me, I can only say this, that like, I kind of tend to agree though. I think you really do need to stop something like so that it doesn't get worse. And
right.
Regardless of, hey, it wasn't killing everybody, it was killing people. So
right. But would our government have reacted that way 20 years ago, 40 years ago? No, will they ever act that way again after after what happened, that we went through? Like, these are the questions that
also COVID was such a slow rolling virus too. It's like, I really feel like there's whatever the next one that happens is going to be a lot quicker and is going to be a lot more deadly, and
could be.
I think, we had something that didn't kill everybody right away. And it was, the threat level wasn't taken as seriously, I think. And it's hard to say, what the future reaction will be because of the actual, thing itself. Mm-hmm. So, whether that's the virus or whether it's
but as I predicted here in the book, there was a crisis that happened in 2020 and there was a government response and the people also went along with it. Just like they predicted here in the book.
Yeah, that's the point.
That's the point. That's the point. Here we have one hypothetical event and three hugely contrasting responses. In all likelihood, the impact on history would come less from the act of terrorism itself than from the response it would provoke. That's the line I wanted to make clear. And that's what I'm not talking about the politics of what happened, but this is the main point of what they're talking about in this book. If it would have happened at any other time in history, we don't know. There's just no way our government would have responded that way and the people would have responded that way. But it was based on the generations that we had at the time, the people that were in charge, and this is how it went down. And the response is what I'm interested in looking to the future, ahead to the future of the 90s. No one can say whether nuclear terrorism will ever strike, nor anyone can be sure about any number of troubling scenarios often mentioned in predictions about the early 21st century. The use of chemical, germ, or nuclear weapons by small nations, revolution in Latin America, belligerent third world fundamentalism, AIDS, the global warming trend, ozone depletion. Whatever happened to the ozone? Exhaustion of fossil fuels.
You stopped using CFCs and it fixed itself. That's what happened.
The abuse of high-tech genetics, trade wars, or a debt-fueled financial crisis. Ooh, there's some good ones in there. Nobody can today predict what specific problems or events America's leaders will face in the 2010s and 2020s. Likewise, around 1745 and 1910, respectively, nobody could have predicted the Boston Tea Party or Pearl Harbor Day. still less the rapid and momentous sequels to those events. When experts investigate the future, they typically rely on quantitative projections. But these same experts, they acknowledge they are helpless before the great mysteries of human nature, how people will respond to those problems, how they will think, behave, and vote. This is what fascinates me here, especially going into just the next couple of elections, the midterm and the next presidential election, how people will respond to the things that have been going on over the last decade, the things that have happened in the last year or two, and how we see it, the fractures that have happened in our country and our communities, and this is what really interests me. How will people respond to all of these problems? How will they think, behave, and vote, especially as we get through this crisis and fourth turning and get into the first? When energy forecasters probe the long-term future of fossil fuels, for example, they seldom ask whether Americans in the 21st century will act any differently than they did during the me decade of the 70s. Implicitly, these forecasters assume people would react to another oil shortage by behaving the same way. Government with complex regulation, producers with market chaos, consumers with angry gas lines. Likewise, economists who make long-term social security projections tend to assume that persons in pre- and post-retirement age brackets will maintain the same political attitudes that people in these age brackets have shown in the recent past. That's just wild. That's wild.
I think that's also a little specious too, because I think you get more conservative as you grow older.
Yeah.
I think that's just the way it is.
Agreed.
And so I don't think that people who are I think that they're definitely, especially as boomers definitely stopped caring as much in their elderhood about.
Well, boomers have always just cared about themselves.
Right. But they made a kind of a pretense at saying they cared about everyone else. They kind of just dropped that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I love my boomers.
We love boomers. In other words, they assume that old, silent, and boomers will sustain the senior citizen benefits lobby with the same intensity as GIs. They did, and that younger 13ers. Yeah, they did. They went full ham, and that younger 13ers and millennials will subsidize elder benefits as willingly as the silent and boom have in recent decades. That's that's good for them for pointing this out. Yeah. Hey, it's not going to all be like this. Everybody's going to react differently. Straight line projections like these can be way off the mark. The equivalent of forecasting how the Civil War would be waged by studying the speeches of Henry Clay. History tells us one thing for certain about social behavior. It never remains the same for long. The realistic question is not whether it will change, but how and when. Woo-hoo!
Social behavior changes from season to season.
Yeah.
In this country.
Season to season, location to location, because I mean the way that people would act in rural Missouri is very different from the way people would act in downtown LA in a lot of ways. There's a lot of sameness in some ways, there's a lot of difference. Just like
you can put all the people in the entire state of Missouri into downtown LA and still have room left over for a lot more people.
You could. You could. There's about 6 million of us. But I'm just saying, like, our governments and the response and the reaction, that can change, like you said, season to season from where you're at in the country. We're not a monolithic culture anymore. Not that we ever really truly were, but I think in our growing up in the awakening era, as they're talking about here, the 60s, that was the height of the monoculture when we all had TVs and the same channels, 60s, 70s, 80s. We were getting kind of the same media, the same entertainment. And that was a very monoculture, but it hasn't been that way since the 90s. We've fragmented between all of our entertainment and our news sources. And we were fragmented before the TV as well, because by just the fact of the means of communication were so slow. So, it's very hard to just group the American people and an entire generation of millions into this or that. That's kind of my point, is what I'm trying to say.
100%. And yeah, take a look at how big our freaking country is and how many people we actually have in this country and how
Yeah.
spread apart we really are.
Oh yeah.
I love looking at those maps where they take, the other countries, the entire other countries, and float them on top of the United States. And it's
Other continents.
yeah, the whole continent. We're not we'll never be a monolithic culture.
No.
We are at best the melting pot of everything. And what our perceived nature is not a singular individual.
Right.
And I think that does when you do boil it down to that, when you start to associate entire countries with a specific type of individual, like, oh, you always think of the French as being snooty and off-putting.
Aren't they though? I'm just kidding.
But and the British as not having good teeth and good food, and
right.
Germans as being very engineer, very Strauss.
However, though, those places and those cultures are much, much smaller.
Right.
Like,
yeah, they're more monolithic too, because they don't have the same. They have even more of a national identity because they're much, much older. And they actually do have a sovereign identity of, hey, our peoples have been here for thousands of years.
Right. And I had that in my area. My family's been here for 13 generations. And, and that's very common in the East and Southeast and Midwest of the country.
Yeah.
So, we all have our different ways and heritage of doing things. And my only issue with the whole melting pot theory is, are we really melting, or are we just have our own little clubs everywhere, and we're just
every major city has its own. It's like ridiculous here how many different little Tokyos, little little Bangladesh, little little Seoul.
And that's not a very big sign of melting. That's a sign of we're all just hanging out and being roommates in the same place. And that's not a good thing for a country if you're trying to be a sovereign nation.
We're still very, very fragmented. It's going to take another, huge event. I think it's going to take some sort of catastrophic event that wipes out a good portion of humanity, for humanity to actually start coming together as a singular people to have a goal of furthering the species rather than furthering themselves. Because I think right now we as a species are more into furthering our own individual selves rather than the collective self.
Sure.
Which I'm not advocating that's just the way it is. I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying that's what I perceive the world to be. And I believe that in order to become a more enlightened species, my belief is that we do need to have more of a empathetic nature towards our fellow humanity and lift each other up. But that's not going to happen in the time. So
no, it's not. It's not.
Pragmatist. These are things that I would like for humanity. I would like us to go on down that road, but I understand where we're living today.
Yeah. And it's impossible with all different cultures, different religions, different languages, different ways of life, different ways of thought. I personally, instead of the more of the, one global, one human or whatever, I'm more of I like that different countries are different. I like that there's different cultures. I like that there's different ways of thought. I like that there's different, I love that there's a Japan and there's an England and there's there's an Ethiopia and there's a Bolivia and there's a Brazil. And I like that there's these different cultures and different people.
I'm with you too. And that's the thing is I'm with you on that as well. I definitely agree that our, tribalism, which gets bad, but it is what it is. It is tribalism, and that's inherent in our nature, and that's okay too. We need people who are like ourselves to move forward, and I'm not saying that ever needs to go away. I guess listen, I'm a Star Trek fan, so I love the idea of in the future humanity Earth is a much better place. That's
right.
all.
Sure.
But,
sure.
but that's not like we don't still have conflicts and stuff. So
yeah. All right. Let's see.
I know we don't live in Gene Roddenberry's future.
We do not.
I want my teleporter. They promised me a teleporter, damn it. I was promised a hover car when I was a kid. Weren't you promised a hover car?
What was that?
We were promised a hover car. When
we were. Hoverboards, hover cars.
Hover cars and jetpacks. There's my hover car and my jetpack.
Yeah, I know. It's not fair.
I mean, James Bond had a jetpack in 1964. How come we don't have those yet?
I know. And Back to the Future promised flying cars in 2015. So
I know.
Just lies. Just lies.
I mean, we got the movies and we got the Jaws 10.
Well, we stopped looking. We've lost our wonder and imagination as a culture, and all that. I've been making my next video that I'm making is about all of the TV shows that raised Gen X, the stuff that taught us things that we learned from, and one thing I noticed about all of the programming that we had was just the sense of wonder and imagination and creativity and just thought what could come next and where can we go next. And this hopeful thing that just is nowhere to be found in our culture anymore. And so all of that stuff, all of these future things that we thought we would have, like somehow everything just kind of died in 2000. And it was like, yep, Reading Rainbow's on the list. But like,
that's too old for that.
You were too old for Reading. Yeah. Well, and that's what this video is going to be almost 2 hours long, because I go through all of the stuff for the older Gen Xers in the 70s. And then I go through all the stuff for the younger Gen Xers in the 80s. So it is a long video, but a lot of those shows lasted for a couple of decades and hit us both. So, so anyway,
I'm old enough to remember Romper Room too.
I just finished my segment on Romper Room.
About a weird show.
Yes, it was. I was
watching those shows now as an adult, going, man, those guys were on drugs.
Not all of them, especially like the kindergarten teacher. I just did a segment on the Magic Garden, and like they were like kindergarten teachers, and Romper Room was kindergarten teachers, and like it's a really cool, but it's just a whole, it's just. Obviously, I'm looking at a different world when I do these videos, and Electric Company's on there as well, and it's just crazy how we've lost our sense of hopeful to the future. Every young person I know is, I'm never going to be able to buy a house, I'm never going to be able to get married, I'm never going to have kids, or I don't want kids, and it's never any thought of I could create this, or I could, maybe we could do that. The only creativity seems to be coming for apps and video games, which I don't know. You have to have boredom to have creativity. And that's true. Like, we don't have any boredom anymore, especially for the kids. Like, there's always something to do. You always can doom scroll, or you can, you can click through your different apps or whatever it is. There's no boredom anymore. So it's just interesting.
We lost, speaking of puffin stuff, we lost...
we lost one of the
only remaining Croft brother.
Yeah, the Croft brother. Yes.
I forget if it was Sid or Marty, but he is gone to his brother and no more.
Yep. HR Puffin stuff was very strange. I didn't include it on the list in this video just because I'm focusing on shows that literally their goal was to literally teach and not just entertain.
And Marty Croft, those were not teachable shows.
No, those were not teachable shows.
Those were the shows that my stoner parents would go, ooh, that show is on. I love that show. Let's watch that.
Let's drop some acid and watch that.
My parents did. I'm sure. My uncle did. Oh, yeah. Sure.
Oh, God.
Great. I love that show. Land of the Lost, though, was my jam.
Oh, yes. Land of the Lost. That was a good one. And it's just so funny.
Board game that I won off of a Facebook group.
Oh, cool.
For winning an essay contest that Kathy Coleman judged.
Oh.
And I have met Kathy Coleman and Wesley.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm a geek.
All right. History tells us one thing for certain about social behavior. It never remains the same for long. The realistic question is not whether it will change, but how and when. That is where the qualitative insight of the generational cycle can help. Through it, we can check out the mysterious wild cards of social behavior and assess what other forecasters normally avoid. Future constellational moods and the peer personalities of today's generations as they age into new phases of life. Using our hypothetical nuclear terrorism as a point of departure, reflect on how America did in fact respond to perceived threats against the national community at analogous moments during the Great Power Cycle, at the time of the Chicago Haymarket Riot of 1886 and the Awakening Era, at the time of Seeking of the Lusitania in 1915 and Inner-Driven Era, or at the time of the attack of Pearl Harbor in 1941, a crisis era. In each of these examples, history was determined less by the spark-like event itself than by the mood of the constellational era in which it has occurred. I think that's very important to note as things happen right now, to think about the mood of our current of our country and the crisis era that we are in, and how that plays such a critical role. And then how the boomers are the elders, we're the midlife, millennials are the rising adults, and the Gen Z are the youth. So just to think about that as we go through this chapter. This is not to say that history is invariant with predetermined outcomes. Any era can bring forward good or bad leaders, good or bad choices. What we do suggest is that constellational eras and generational life cycles follow predictable patterns within each generation, within which each generation has a limited choice of scripts. During social moments, secular crises especially, those scripts become more fateful, more determinative of history, more likely to result in triumph or tragedy. This is just beautiful stuff.
The thing for me right now is, I guess I'm feeling I'm feeling pessimistic towards the near future. Like, I think the rest of this year and the next couple of years themselves are going to be, no matter what happens, I think they're going to be difficult.
Absolutely.
But I believe that once we're out of this and into the 2030s, I really think that we're going to start amping up. And I think that we're going to be on the rise of a roller coaster like we've never seen before. That's my hope.
I don't necessarily disagree.
It's not even a political statement. It's just like, I just hope that we're in a better place, whichever way it goes.
Well, that's the hard thing. As far as what mood, the national mood, well, the mood is the chaos. The mood is the unrest and the rising violence and that's the mood. The anger, and we are literally, it seems like we're split about 50-50, maybe 55-45. I don't know.
Honestly, I think it's more like 30-30-30, because I think there's a whole cohort of people who just don't give a shit.
Well, that's true. That's true.
And I think they're a lot larger than we think. But I think if you're, the boil down point is the red versus blue, right? But I think I think there's still more of a gray area in between. That's the one that gray area is the one that's actually going to determine. Right.
Well, and I agree with you.
It's like the third rule in baseball. You're going to win a 30-year games. You're going to lose a 30-year games. It's that third in between that.
Right.
However you play that's how it's going to go. And I think
and yes, and also as far as you're hopeful for these next couple of years will be rough, but you're hopeful for the 2030s and we get into the first turning. The question is, and this goes to the mood of the nation and how fractured we are. Really, the question is, who gets to decide the future, like the course of our nation moving forward? Because there's a very big fight between that, and that seems to be.
That's the thing. I don't know.
And I don't know either.
Decide, well, it's not going to. Well, the thing is, it's not a single person. It's the will of the people, I would hope.
Right. But since the people are so split and so opposing on how they view, the country, how they view the laws, how they view how we view ourselves, I mean, half of us wants to close down borders and not let anybody else in and kick a lot of people out. And the other half want everybody to come in, it seems like. So it's like, how do we reconcile that? That's going to be the big question, I think, moving forward, and how we get to the other side of this crisis. I don't know how we get through it. I don't know. It's going to be rough. You're right. It's going to be rough.
It's going to be, there'll be yeah, I'm not religious, but there's a phrase that I really like. A come to Jesus moment.
Yep.
There will be a come to Jesus moment for
our country,
the nation in general, and for a lot of people. And whatever that happens to be, I think is where we're going to go forward, how we're going to go forward, because it's hard to even have conversations at this point. It is. So, we're all very triggered, about everything that's going on.
I feel like, do you think it's the same? Like, I feel like a lot of that lives online, because if I get out into the physical world in my community, the mood feels different. Do you feel like a lot of that lives online, or are we really as bad as it seems when we're battling out on social media with people? That's one of my questions.
Well, that's difficult. I mean, I think that's difficult to answer. I exist in an echo chamber,
right.
I'm out here on the West Coast with all my liberal hippie friends, and I don't really have a whole lot of exposure to, let's just put it this way. At this point in my life, I'm not willing to put up with rhetoric a whole lot in public.
Right.
I don't agree with, because I'm more likely to have a visceral reaction.
Right.
Interesting. So, but again, it's not like, okay, if I were, say, for example, if I were in Utah visiting my in-laws, we would just we would either have a spoken or unspoken agreement that we just don't discuss certain things.
Yeah.
Because it will start a fight.
Yeah.
Not be solved.
That's just so wild, though, because our whole lives, it was never like that. I was always around people that I, disagreed with politically or however, and it never went into this fact that we cannot talk about this or else it's going to go to blows. But then it started to happen in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But
you noticed it started to happen when Newt Gingrich did his whole stuff with Congress.
Really?
Yeah, that's when I started noticing it.
Oh.
Because during the 80s, you couldn't really be a dissident you couldn't really be a liberal in the 80s. You just kind of had to be quiet about it, because because there was no way you could have any say. So you just kind of, the entire decade was controlled by Republicans. So there was nothing that and I grew up in that decade, and it was a fight. It was a fight, and you knew as a liberal that you were outnumbered and outgunned. And so that's why when Clinton was elected in 92, it was like a watershed moment, because we hadn't had, a liberal president in 12 years at that point.
Right.
There was a huge turning point for us at that point. We were able to, speak up, but then, instead of the polite dissidence that the liberals, the left would have in the 80s, agreeing to disagree and saying blah blah blah, that didn't happen with the conservatives in the 90s when Gingrich started his stuff. So that's my perception of it. I mean, I don't see any of that. I didn't experience it, at least until in the last 10 years. Yeah, no, I think it definitely was around in the 90s. More so in the 90s, it was more so on the AM FM airwaves, and more so on television talk shows and, the Maury's and the,
right.
and the, what's his name? The smoker guy. I forget,
Morton Downey.
Yeah. Morton Downey. That kind of stuff. It gave all rise to that kind of stuff.
I mean, I still feel like we were all able to argue and have it out and still go have a beer together afterwards. Like, I mean, I don't know. And that was my perception. That was my experience anyways. I don't know. That's interesting that, and again, I think it has a lot to do with where we lived. I was in the Midwest, you were on the coast. And so these are just completely different experiences, but I find that very interesting because I just, there's just such different American experiences depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
So, each of today's generations, we're going to go to page 377. Let's see. In the pages that follow, we present a generational itinerary of America's future from the 1990s to the 2060s. It is a story of hope and worry, of opportunity and danger. Each of today's generations will face the future with its own unique peer personality, its own special mission of endowment. How will they fare? Contemporary readers can speculate. Only our heirs will know for sure.
But we're not contemporary readers. We are readers reading this 30 years later. So we can say what happened.
Yep. We are future readers. Ha ha ha.
We are from the future. We are in the future.
I love it.
I'm a little stoned right now, but
I'm about to be. I'm about to burn.
2025, man.
2026. You're a year off.
Okay, so yeah, I had the good drugs right now.
Good for you. All right. Let's just keep going here. I'm gonna read a little bit more in this section, then we're gonna jump ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm gonna kind of touch. I kind of marked everything that pertains to us.
Yeah.
In our generation. Hold on, I got a cough. Smoker's cough. Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully that stream doesn't freeze on me doing that cough, because that would be really funny.
Gotta get the Nicorette, right?
I know, right?
I never smoked a tobacco cigarette in my life.
Really?
Never. My dad died of lung cancer, and I grew up with my dad smoking in the house and my grandmother smoking in the house, and I just couldn't stand
Me too.
it. So
yeah. I come from a long line of smokers.
I smoked cigars. I smoked weed, but
fuck yeah.
Tobacco is not my thing.
No, to each his own, I say. Completing the eras of the Millennial Cycle. We are on page 377. Somehow the past always seems nearer than the future. World War I started. Well, this is going to be a little off. World War I started 8 decades ago in Europe. That's not so long ago. The year 2069 is the same distance in the future. Okay. Let's go down a little bit. Now let's look at what the cycle tells us about the next 8 decades. This is from the 90s. So we're going from the 90s to the 2060s. We start with an automatic demographic projection, reminding us how old we shall all be at 22-year intervals into the future, from 1981 until the year 2069. Figure 13.1 starts with 1981 because that was the last cohort year of a new reactive generation and thus marks an aligned awakening constellation. Moving forward from 1981, using 22-year multiples, we estimate that the next 4 aligned constellations will occur around 2003, inner-driven, 2025, crisis, 2047, outer-driven, and 2069, awakening. Notice how in figure 13.1, which I believe is right here on the right, notice how the age brackets of living generations are roughly aligned with the 4 phases of life in 1981 and at all subsequent 22-year intervals. We cannot project those aligned constellations with precision, of course. For another 2 or 3 decades, we cannot even be sure whether 1981 is in fact the last 13-year cohort. And beyond that, the boundary years are even less certain. Knowing that generations average about 22 years in length, however, we can make reliable estimates and project future rhythms with a relatively small margin of error. So over here on 13.1, go to the crisis right in the middle, and you'll see where we're all at. This is
GI and silent don't really mean anything anymore.
Yeah, they're all uber old, except yeah. However, the silent, there are some silents, the youngest silents that are just hanging on for dear life in the Congress. For fuck's sake. Between
I know, isn't there like a 95-year-old Congress? There's also a congressman they haven't been able to find for like 3 years. Oh, what the hell's going on?
I know, it is wild. It is wild that these 85, 90-year-old people are like, and I don't like the idea of putting age limits on things because everybody's different. But I feel like maybe 80 to 85
95 years old.
That's the thing. I don't that's my reasoning is for having some kind of an age limit on Congress or elected officials, because at some point you are making decisions for the next, like, you're gone in 5 to 10 years and you're sitting here making all these decisions for 30-year-olds who can't buy a house. And so, like, you know, it would make sense to put some some limits on age when it comes to representing and making public policy. It's just wild to me. The other thing we term limits is to keep people from being in there for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. That is just, you know, that is just wild. Anyways, let's get down
to the idea of Greek and Roman political service. Like, you would go in for a couple years, you come out, you may go back in later.
Right. Yeah. I almost feel like government positions should almost be like jury duty for everybody, and everybody just go in for a few months or a year.
Not a bad idea. I kind of like that, you know. Everybody has to do 2 years of community service somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
You have to, like, okay, your community, so you can work in the federal office of red tape. Okay.
You know, I don't like any kind of force, but, like, I don't know, just a different way of.
But if you wanted to be, but hey, if that's what you wanted, you could join the military. Sure, no problem.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, or work in government.
Some sort of, I don't have a problem as long as you get paid a fair wage or you get, you know, room and board or whatever. I mean, I don't see. I've always thought the idea of mandatory service to the state was not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. As long as it's mandatory for everybody and you can't get out of it.
Right. Some kind of a citizenship requirement or some kind of a, you know, before, like, there's got to be ways to kind of redo some things, because I'd like to come up with some ideas to get rid of career politicians and, you know, because I'd like to get the money and the power out of it, if that makes any sense, you know, and the only way you do that is if you put limits on things and not let everybody sit up there for 50 years and then go into the public sector, into the private sector, and then back to the public. Like, you know, they're just, it's such a crony system. And, yeah.
Well, let's all have the AI and computers in charge.
Right. Well, that's probably what's going to happen. God dang
right?
it. I'd rather have a common sense 85-year-old than a Gavin Newsom as governor. And that's the, you know, and I don't like to put age limits on things, but you know, whether, no matter what political party, whoops, I just knocked my phone off the table. No matter who you go with, like, yeah, it's like, I don't want to put because some people at 85 are sharp as a tack, but again, they're making policy decisions for people that, you know, they're going to be gone in 5 years, and they're forcing their worldview on the next generations. All right, 379, bottom of the page. Where are we at here? I have it marked underneath. I think my page, my book is a little bit different. Yeah, my book is a little bit different. Okay, 379. I got to go. Maybe I should turn the page to 379. That might help.
There you
go. All right. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, America has been and will remain in an inner-driven mood. On schedule, each of today's generations is maturing in a predictable direction as it begins to enter a new phase of life. The GIs are becoming energetic post-elders. The silent sensitive elders, boomers, moralistic midlifers, and 13ers, alienated rising adults. So this is again from the 90s. Also on schedule, these same generations have emerged from the recent awakening, feeling good about their personal lives, yet worried that the spiritual afterglow cannot thrive forever on the strength of secular endowments made in pre-awakening decades. This is what I wanted to get to right here. The opening years of this era, the mid to late 1980s, ranked among the less eventful of modern American history. The national mood was calm, with values quite settled, in contrast to the awakening 1970s. GI leaders stayed on as reliable caretakers at the very top of public institutions, increasingly regarded as ineffective. The silent, now filling most lesser spots, from Congress and cabinets to state legislatures and corporate directorships, impressed their made-by-committee stamp on political and economic life. Boomers, still wrapped up in young families and new careers, made their yuppie phase of political remission the subject of much wonderment. Here we go. 13er youths showed early signs of economic distress and cultural alienation. Hi. Yeah. And millennial babies benefited from a rekindled adult affection for infants. Most Americans worried that the country was not facing up to its long-term challenges, but found it very difficult to concentrate attention on an effective response. By the decade's end, 1980s, talk of a new world order felt premature in a society unsure of its own foundations. As the 1990s dawned, the generational constellation and mood resembled those of the 1910s, 1845, yikes, 1750, and 1650.
Well, 1845 was still 15 years before that.
Yeah, but
although it's like
what will the 90s bring? Did I even have this marked to even talk about? Oh yes. What will the 90s bring? I had that at the very bottom. Meanwhile, this is what they said about us. Meanwhile, 13ers will advance into rising adulthood, engaged in an alienated culture, an emphasis on getting what you can without excuses in a world that, as they will see it, never cared about giving them much. And in the 90s, 1999 was a wonderful year of movies, from Fight Club to Office Space to the kind of that Gen X mood they're talking about here. Matrix, yeah.
Star Wars Episode 1.
Dan has a good point. There are certain people I don't want in charge of anything.
That's why they're on a jury. You're not supposed to get smart people on a jury.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, think about it. You're getting people that can't get out of jury duty.
Right.
When we're so afraid to just go, he's already guilty.
The thing is, though, is that if our justice system if our justice system was actually working properly and not so broken, jury duty would actually be a very good thing to do for your community. Like, it's actually, I don't know. Yeah,
I had a good time.
So anyway,
not that fucker too.
Huh? Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was drunk driving. He was driving.
Oh no bueno.
He claimed he was pulled over because he was gay.
Oh,
like, no, you were pulled over because you were stopped in the middle of the street. For 5
minutes. Tried to play that card, did he?
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care if you're gay. You shouldn't be driving drunk.
Right.
I don't care about you're gay. I don't give a crap. Driving drunk, that I care about.
Right. When America reaches an aligned, inner-driven constellation, sometimes around 2003, each generation will fully occupy a new phase of life. To me, this is 9/11. This is post 9/11.
Yeah, exactly.
The surviving GIs will be very old, the silent in elderhood, boomers in midlife, 13ers in rising adulthood, and millennials in youth. Yeah. The generational alignment will match the constellations of 1924, 1855, yikes, 1766, and 1673. At all four of these moments, Americans perceived their social life to be fragmenting into centrifugal and uncontrollable wildness. Woo!
Yeah, that kind of describes the post 9/11.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Dude, is it me or is like everything from 9/11 to 2016 is one big blur? One big blur. I have no idea what happened.
I was very politically active from 9/11.
I have no idea what
2001
happened
2016.
in like just in a general sense. I'm like, what's going on? You know?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was very politically active during that decade, so I remember it very vividly.
Wow.
From the from the Iraq War, the Afghanistan wars, to the economy was okay, but the housing bubble was building.
Yeah.
The .com bubble had just burst. And then we get into the 2004 election with Bush and Kerry. And then we had then the iPhone pops up in 2007.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm I can tell you what happened in terms of pop culture, but
yeah.
But no, I mean, for me, also that's when I got married and had a kid. So.
Gotcha. Well, and that's very common. Like once you get in that stage of your life, like the issues of the world aren't as important because you've got to take care of your your spouse and your kids.
Yeah, and also between 2008 and 2016, my guy was in the office, and I would be not real happy.
Yeah, I was not. I worked on the I worked on the Ron Paul campaign in 2008 and in 2012. Those were my very hardcore libertarian years. And yeah, and then it was a very we had the 2008 financial crisis. We had the cash for clunkers, which cleared out all the old used cars and just destroyed our auto industry. We Occupy Wall Street, which was really fun. And I feel like at Occupy Wall Street, the left and right were starting to come together and be like, hey, this makes sense. It's us against the elites. And then that all got busted up. And here we are. So anyways, it was quite a wild decade. And then I went to prison. So
I barely remember Occupy Wall Street.
Really?
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Little impact for me that I just felt like I didn't know what the point was,
Oh, was I
didn't understand what was going
on.
I didn't. Well, I mean, I guess I understood what was going on. I didn't understand the reaction.
Gotcha.
Thought it was a bit silly to me, but whatever. Like I said, it was a time when I had a toddler, so
right.
I was probably more interested in, getting home to watch the Teletubbies.
Right. I understand that. All the Enron scam. That was like 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
That was crazy. There's a great documentary called The Smartest Guys in the Room about that whole thing. Yeah. It is a wild story. Wild story. All right, let's keep going. The boomer and 13er cultures will by then, and we're talking about the 2000s, be moving into self-contained camps. No. Loud, moralizing aggressors on the older side and atomized pleasure-seeking victims on the younger. A vindictive age polarization America has not witnessed since the Roaring 20s. Woo! I just love this shit.
What's funnier though is that the boomers hate the millennials more than they hate us.
I know. I don't know how we got. I don't know. I think because the millennials are their children more so than the Gen X. Yeah. But I really love that they really called the polarization. Looking down the age ladder, elders silent will express dismay at growing signs of tribalism and nativism, social intolerance, and just plain meanness. Boomers will voice exasperation over the ineffective leadership, however well-intentioned, even though it's themselves, of their next elders. See, this is where they got that off. Because they were off there because the boomers were in charge and they were been in charge for a decade by that point.
Yeah.
So there was nothing. There was no boomers.
Remember, the silence got skipped in terms of presidents.
They did until Joe. Until
Joe.
Yep.
Fucking strange. So.
Oh.
He wasn't my favorite president either.
What was that?
He wasn't my favorite president either.
Oh God, what a nightmare! Anybody that can campaign from their basement, that was an interesting era. All right, boomers will voice exasperation. I think they got that wrong because they were the ones in charge. Boomers will voice exasperation over the ineffective leadership of their next elders and fury at the help myself nihilism of their next juniors. That's true.
That was utterly true.
Yeah. Looking up, 13ers will sense among older generations an utter impracticality and ability to see the world for what it really is.
Oh yeah, because they have their rose-colored glasses, and that's what they're gonna see the world as.
Right.
They've never seen the world through our eyes of cynicism and pain.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and they've the boomers and the silent as well have all lived in this post World War II rules based order of the world. That is, they have lived in that their whole lives, and so have we. But they benefited from it, and we have not.
Right,
and
they're all still looking towards back to the 50s. They want it to be 1955 in America again.
Oh, that sounds kind of good.
Unless you were black or woman, or
I don't know,
in the country or in the world, or I mean, if you were a white male, yeah, it'd be great.
Wow. If you look at the numbers, there was a lot of prosperity in those minority communities, and women and stuff. Like I think women were doing just fine. But that's just me. That's just me. As America moves into the ensuing crisis era, long deferred secular problems can be expected to reemerge with fearsome immediacy. Oh, this is good. This is good. As America moves into the ensuing crisis, long deferred secular problems can be expected to reemerge with fearsome immediacy. The aging silent will participate eagerly in the new search for institutional solutions that work, while reminding their juniors, something few will then want to hear, that the solutions should be fair as well. God, fairness. The word fair is, I hate the word fair. There's no such thing. Boomers, their first wave cohorts frowning on the golden age, sales brochures beginning to arrive by mail, will turn up their moral megaphones to full blast. Hold on. Boomers, their first wave cohorts frowning on the golden age sales brochures beginning to arrive by mail, will turn up their moral megaphones to full blast. Okay. If ever there were a time to turn Pepperland into reality, many boomers will be thinking that time is nearing. On the brink of midlife and now beginning to tire, 13ers will sense their party boat drifting toward a waterfall and will start thinking about which way to leap and when. Millennials, busy transforming college life, will astound and delight elders with their friendly, optimistic, and team-playing attitude. This is where they get it wrong in my book, and that's because of they just and I don't know if anybody could have saw the
boomers.
I think the iPhone and social media really messed up the things for be able to predict things, because it really changed our culture and changed our generations. We had millennials were the first to have some kind of devices their whole life, and then now Z has never been off the internet. So like, I don't know, it changed us as a people. It changed us and how we do things.
Yeah, maybe it's interesting. Maybe millennials will now go up to mid 2000s, 2007. If you can't remember ever not having an iPhone,
right?
Gen Alpha.
That's one thing I'd like to talk to William Strauss about, or Neil Howe.
Yeah.
If they were writing, and we can, when we get to the fourth turning is here, I think Howe addresses this a little bit, but how they feel about their generational lines that they drew in this book. Would they amend that now? Oh
yeah, they would definitely say, I think, any halfway decent scientist, and that's what they are, they're social scientists.
Right.
we'll always say that there's room for, modification in your hypothesis, because that's the way science works.
Yep.
So, you have to say, yeah, I said that then. And as we have seen, I was incorrect in my hypothesis. That's okay.
Right.
A good scientist will say that anyway.
Yeah.
Bad scientists will double down and say, no, I was right all along. And this
right.
But a good scientist would say, and I believe these guys are to be good scientists, they will say, yeah, of course, because we couldn't predict the fact that the boomers would not go away, quietly, that they would still be in charge, that the silence would never have anybody in charge until after the boomers had their cycle.
Right.
Who could have predicted that we would have a second Grover Cleveland situation? Come on. I didn't think that was ever going to happen.
Yeah. And they couldn't have predicted the technology how tech changed us. They couldn't have ever.
You could have predicted the technology boom, because the advancing rate of processor speed doesn't correlate to like a geometrical thing.
But I bet how that affected us.
Yeah. The specific format, the way that it's, God, it's so individual. It's like it goes with you everywhere.
Yeah.
We've no other technology like that in the entire span of history.
Right.
It's like clothing.
Yeah.
Clothing. It's your phone. It's your clothing. I think people would go out without their clothing if they could. I'll tell you what, if your phone could project a hologram of your clothes on you all the time, you would never wear clothes again, would you?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, if it had a force field too that kept away,
I was going to say, hot, cold, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, if it was perfect, right?
Right.
It's my perfect world, and this is my perfect hypothesis.
Okay.
If you have a hologram, covering your body, you would.
Right.
You just wear you'd wear a generic outfit, and then it would change.
Yep.
Who cares about fashion?
That's true.
But this phone thing, it's connected us to everyone.
All right, let's keep moving along.
I got disturbed during the only time.
All right. Let's see. What did I have?
If millennials are so screwed up, how do you account for measures of social pathology going down every year as they come along?
Measures of going down every year as they came along.
I'm not sure I'm smart enough to answer that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm smart enough to answer that either.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. I'll have to think about that and ponder that one.
Yeah, maybe give some more context. I'd love to know the thought process, but I'm
definitely
clueless, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Right. Yeah, same here. Yeah, I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. I'll need more. But
I love the question. Keep it up.
Yes.
I'm just not that smart.
Dan, are you talking about the fourth turning is here? Because I have read it. I don't know if we want. Yeah, I don't know. I'm subscribed to a Substack, but I don't know does he have another book besides The Fourth Turning is Here? Because because we're going to be reading that towards the end of the year. Okay, let's keep moving because we still got a long way to go. All right.
But yes, we do want to split.
Enter the crisis of 2020. Boom. When will this crisis come? The climactic event may not arrive exactly in the year 2020. It did, but it won't arrive much sooner or later. A cycle is the length of 4 generations, or roughly 88 years. If we plot a half cycle ahead for the boom awakening and find the 44th anniversaries of Woodstock and the Reagan Revolution, we project a crisis lasting from 2013 to 2024. If we plot a full cycle ahead from the last secular crisis and find the 88th anniversaries of the FDR landslide and Pearl Harbor Day, we project a crisis lasting from 2020 to 2029. By either measure, the early 2020s appear fateful. This is just so fun. How old will each generation be when the crisis arrives? On average, history tells us the crisis begins 62 years after the idealist's middle birth year and 19 years after the civic's middle birth year, and it peaks 5 or 10 years later. Thus, at the peak of the crisis, the surviving silent will be in their mid-80s and beyond, the boomers in elderhood, 13ers in midlife, millennials in rising adulthood, and a new generation of adaptives, Gen Z, in youth. They got that right.
Yep.
What will precipitate this crisis? It could be almost anything, including incidents trumped up by a generation of elderly warrior priests, gripped with visions of moral triumph. The spark that catches fire may seem accidental, but as with many past examples, the overthrow of Andros, the Boston Tea Party, Lincoln's election, and Pearl Harbor, old idealists may have a hand in stirring events to maximum political effort, mobilizing younger generations into action.
I think it was just some sloppy lab work in China, but what do I know?
You say what?
I think it was just some sloppy lab work in China.
Oh, yeah. It probably was.
I honestly think that's what it was. I don't think it was anything more than that. I think some idiots in China did something they shouldn't have done and were really sloppy with it. It happens all the time. I don't think it was anything more than because it's really, I mean, it's probably the most explainable,
Yeah.
How did it start? Some people were stupid, they busted lab protocols, they dropped a petri dish.
Yeah. But then they shouldn't have been, but there's also the fact that if that was the case and considering who was funding it, we shouldn't have been doing that in the first place.
Oh, I didn't say that. No. I said people doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, no, I wasn't advocating that we shouldn't make COVID. Okay,
but there's also the theory that it was done intentionally to take down Orange Man bad. The globalists will do anything to get rid of him.
That was a really bad idea then because it didn't work.
I know. That's the thing. It worked at first, but they thought it would.
Actually, I mean, that's dumb. That's dumb.
I don't know.
They really wanted to. They just don't.
I mean, that was how they were able to say everybody should just mail in their vote for the election. No big deal. Let's just all mail them in. Nothing bad could happen, I swear. Anyways, it was a crazy time. All right. Let's see here. How significant will this crisis be? Let's find out.
Really
Recall the parallel eras: the Glorious Revolution, the American Revolution, the Civil War, and the years spanning the Great Depression and World War II. The crisis of 2020 will be a major turning point in American history and an adrenaline-filled moment of trial. At its climax, Americans will feel that the fate of posterity for generations to come hangs in the balance. Boy, did they get that right. Woo! I mean, that's just beautiful. What will the national mood be like? This crisis will be a pivotal moment in the life cycles of all generations alive at the time. The sense of community will be omnipresent. Moral order will be unquestioned, with rights and wrongs crisply defined and obeyed. Okay, this is where they get it wrong. Sacrifices will be asked and given. America will be implacably resolved to do what needs doing and fix what needs fixing. Boy, they were doing so well there for the first three questions. Let's see. So this is from the fourth turning is here. Neil doesn't alter the generational boundaries they already set, except to say we can't be sure yet exactly what the millennial end year will be. And I think that I remember that, like because I think he originally had it around the mid 2000s. His best guess is that the last millennials entered high school sometime during the pandemic. Really? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because that would cut him off around the mid 2000s. Yeah. So
yeah, my kid is 2006, and
that's where mine is. Yeah.
He's definitely Gen Z, not a millennial.
Right. And but that's cuspers as well. I mean, I really like the world before 9/11, but some people go the world before iPhone. As far as the cultural marker. If you can remember a world without an iPhone, you're a millennial. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how that pans out going forward. Which event will end up being more pervasive? Because, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It could be because the iPhone ultimately will have had a larger world impact than
9/11. I mean, considering the fact that nobody ever talks about 9/11 anymore, and it's 25th anniversary. But I am, and on the 25th anniversary this year, I'm doing a full day live stream. It's going to be quite the day. Let's skip forward to page 408. Completing the 13er diagonal. Oh, yeah. Let me get... We're going to go... I'm skipping all the completing of the other generations. I don't think I need to explain why. You know,
screw them.
Yeah. Well, you know, and again, this is just, you know, we read the book, you know, and I'm just for when we meet like this, it's just to pull out some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. And obviously it has to be focused on us. So, and that's what I have just marked to the gills here on my book here. So let's do it. Completing the 13er diagonal. The generational cycle is a sneaky fortune wheel for a reactive generation. It spins, it turns, and just when it lets you think you've lost, it tantalizes. Just when you think you've won, it clicks again and you've lost. So will it be for 13ers.
When will we ever?
Boy, what a way to start. All right.
When do we ever win?
We won with our childhood and our teen years and college years. I mean, I feel like we won hard in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, no, the 90s were good.
Yeah.
The 90s were good. The 80s were okay second half of the decade was okay.
Yeah.
85 to 97 was good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even the aughts weren't terrible. It wasn't.
Well,
I mean,
no, the odds were all right. I mean,
yeah. Even with the post 9/11 and the .com bubble bursting, it still was okay. It wasn't until 08 I feel like it just went off a cliff because of the financial crisis, and a lot of us lost a lot at that time. And
from 04 to 06, I was at UCLA with a bunch of millennials as a 5-year-old. So I had, I really had high hopes for these kids. You know what I mean? I really thought that those kids were really gonna have a much bigger effect.
Well, in their defense, they were raised for a world that didn't exist by the time they became adults.
Exactly.
And that was the problem.
Yeah.
They were prepared for a world that their parents lived in, and that was not the world that they got when they became adults. And so
is that the kids now are not prepared for any world, no matter what it is.
No, and it's really weird.
And what world could they be prepared for in the first place?
Yeah, it is wild. It is wild how this is all.
We're in the end.
We could be. That is a very popular theory where I live.
Becomes
all right.
Times it's Armageddon.
Let's talk about the 90s. Entering rising adulthood in an inner-driven era. This is for 13ers. Remember, they're talking about our generation. The Society for the Acceleration of Time calls upon boomers to hurry up, get old, and get out of the way.
Woo!
Organized fleetingly in 1989.
I joined them.
I know, right? This mock serious 13er lobby articulates the feeling of many of today's 25-year-olds and anxiety about whether young adults can ever rise out of the shadow of the domineering boom. The nation's next great generational rivalry is brewing on the edge of bubbling over.
Well, no, it's not.
And I love how it started with us, and we were the first ones, but millennials and Gen Z get all of the credit on this.
Well, yeah, because
I don't know why we get lumped in with the boomers in the conversational talk, but we seem to. It depends. But I feel this. Throughout American history, the nastiest one-apart generational feuds have been between midlife idealists and rising reactives. This has happened every time, between Puritans and Cavaliers, Awakeners and Liberty, Transcendentals and Gilded, Missionaries and Lost. Idealists invariably come to look upon younger reactives as a wild, soulless, and bad generation, while reactives see older idealists as pompous, authoritarian, and in power more than a little dangerous. 13ers and boomers are already beginning to regard each other this way. During the 1990s, this mutual suspicion will harden. The last skirmish between these two oil and water types arose just before World War I, grew mean after the armistice, and contributed mightily to the roar of the 20s. Something like this roar lies in America's near-term future. I don't know. It feels like 90s, yes, they hated us and we didn't like them.
No. We moved on to hating millennials more.
Yeah, but once 9/11 happened and then the Gen X just kind of got knocked off the conversation, it all went straight to millennials.
Yep.
It all went to boomer millennial, and we just got lost and ignored. And it's wild how that happened.
Yeah, Lounsinger, you're absolutely right. We are not fighting the boomers. They are not fighting us. They don't give a shit about us.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean but this was the feeling in the early 90s because we were the slackers. We were the we were the why even bother with these kids kind of a generation, and they didn't. They literally just were like, we're just going to skip you and we're just going to go to war with the next guys. So this is where but this again is where they got the kind of anomaly thing with like in the Civil War cycle. There was some anomalies with the generations and how that all played out. And that could be this for us as well. I mean, the way things are going out now. I mean, I don't know, but they can't get it. They if they were perfect and got everything right, that would have been weird.
Yeah, they didn't get everything right. But
right.
The interesting thing is as we go along, they'll own up to what they didn't get right. And they will still make even bigger claims that are going to really blow your mind.
Yeah.
Especially in the fourth turning.
Yep. The cycle suggests that 13ers will suffer an alienating event when their first cohorts are in their 30s. This nasty stroke of history will convince them that theirs is indeed a luckless life cycle. I think that could be the .com boom and the 9/11. 9/11 really changed our lives.
It changed
our lives.
Yes, our lives. Yes.
And I think we're the only generation that it really changed.
Yeah, because we remember what it was like, and we were happier with that. And then all of a sudden, the world was a different place, and that's really it was. It wasn't just one thing. The world was a different place after 9/11. We were knocked off our perch. We were exposed for whatever reasons. And the interesting thing was it did bring us together for a short amount of time too.
Yeah.
So, there was that bringing together that happened. And I think that's why I definitely think something like that will happen again and bring us together, because I saw it before. Because right after 9/11, I definitely remember there was not a whole lot of red versus blue. There was a whole lot of us.
Yeah.
I remember that specifically. And
I agree.
Whatever you think about whatever happened that day or all that stuff, you cannot discount the fact that we as a people came together for our fellow mankind that day.
Well, I think that's the last time in my life that we as a people were like, we're Americans.
Yes.
We're gonna fight this together as Americans.
I agree.
We're going to defend our culture, our way of life, our founding, our people, and what we believe. And that was the last time that happened. And it's just all disappeared since.
I agree.
And it's really, really sad.
It is
really sad. Okay. Keep it on. Keep it moving. Okay. Get back here to the page. It could be AIDS. This epidemic, which has thus far mainly struck the boom, will ravage the 13th if it expands unchecked, or it could be a diplomat-directed but youth-scourging military campaign. There you go, military. We were the ones that went to war, went to Afghanistan, went to Iraq. That was Gen X. Gen X were sent over to fight this 20-year war after 9/11. So I think that is. It's just never really talked about how that literally only affected us, and the boomers weren't going over to the deserts in Afghanistan, and the millennials were too young to, so it was us. And it's just really interesting that kind of has gotten lost in our history.
It's interesting too, because those conflicts are not even in the cultural zeitgeist either.
No,
at all. Although it's kind of like the way we stopped talking about Vietnam after the 80s.
Yeah,
that kind of happened too. But at least now I feel like all of those conflicts are viewed positively, if you can say that.
Yeah.
Whereas Vietnam still seems like it was the wrong thing to do. And,
right. It's weird because
it's so weird.
It's so weird. Because during that decade, while our generation was being sent to a never-ending war, that's when the government just exploded. They created new government agencies, defense contractors got uber rich, like all this wealth in the boomer generation was being accrued through the housing market bubble, through the war spending. And then they got all that. And then we just got to go to war. And then in 2008, everything crashed and we didn't get any financial benefits from anything. So we really got screwed.
We have gotten screwed. That could be our motto. We're Gen X. We got screwed.
We got screwed. I'm going to turn my light on. I feel like I'm in the dark. Even though I'm not, it just looks like it. I just don't want there to be like a big light behind me, but it is what it is. All right. Okay. Let's keep going.
We're not supposed to be on, you don't need to have podcast worthy
lighting. Nobody's watching this for me anyway. We're just reading the book. It's not like I'm the star of the show.
Natalie, I think you got some. I think you have some fans out there.
Really?
Oh, I think you do.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that a good thing?
I'd be flattered if I were you.
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty.
I'm sure I don't have very many fans.
Right.
There's not a crazy liberal guy who comes on. He's all from California.
Hey, I like having this discussion. Like I say, yeah. I don't want to, like, in my world on a daily basis, I talk to people that are pretty much like me when it comes to, beliefs and how I look at the world. I like having conversations with people that have different experiences and different viewpoints. So I like having you here, and I really appreciate that you volunteered to come on for this book and
if you'll ever come out to California, I'll take you to my favorite crystal store in Topanga Canyon.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
And I have one, so.
And I'll bring you a Bible.
Wait, you know what? Contrary to popular belief, I've actually read it.
Really?
I used to work in hotels and night audit shifts, and the amount of work I'd actually have to do was minuscule, and I would have like 7 hours to do nothing every night because no one would come in. And so I would always read or listen to music or whatever. But one night I forgot to read. I forgot to bring a book one time. And there's only one book in every room, so I read it.
Thanks, Gideons.
I read it. So I studied it. I am fascinated with Revelations. It's one of my favorite parts.
I'd actually like to do a bit of a book club on just reading Revelation.
Oh, that'd be fun. I had a really good book that was like all this really cool Renaissance and earlier artwork that are scenes from the Revelations.
Cool.
I don't remember what happened to it though. Yeah, no, I'm fascinated with that stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
Me too. Me too.
And so I'm always down for that. I'm always down for anything with like the war between God and Satan and the angels.
Yep.
And demons and
I
all that.
love it. Spiritual warfare. That's like right up my alley.
I took at UCLA. I had a Milton class, and Paradise Lost was like,
cool.
I actually wrote an essay online about how Satan could have been seen as a hero character.
Oh, okay. Oh, we have somebody that would love to do Revelations with us.
Well,
that might be something that I'll put on the I'll put on the agenda.
Yeah, maybe we should make that a Patreon thing or something.
Yeah,
because I don't think we can do it on YouTube and get away with it.
That's true. That's true.
I think it's just a little. Yeah, I think it's a little too much for that. But yeah.
Understood. All right.
I love depictions of the Four Horsemen.
Let's keep moving. Keep moving.
I don't want to see the Four Horsemen, but they're coming.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
The last one I haven't read. Oh, you got to read it. It's actually good.
Yes.
Take it with a grain of salt, though. The dude who wrote it was probably high.
All right. So, let's go here. Or it could be a diplomatic directed but youth scourging military campaign, something on par with the progressive-led intervention against Kaiser Wilhelm II or the Enlightener-led war against French Canada, lining up the 13er life cycle with those of the Liberty and Lost. Such a campaign would occur sometime in the early 90s. But most likely, the alienating event will take the form of an economic downturn. Even a brief one will serve the purpose. Well, you guys were more right than you thought. It's going to be military and economic.
Yep.
All right. Economic threats loom heavy on the 13er horizon. To begin with, their first class graduated from college in 1983. Again, they go by Gen X starting in 1961, which means that this generation's aspiring elite has yet to confront even mildly harsh conditions in the national economy. Second, never before in American history have public benefit safety nets been tilted so heavily toward retired elders, no matter how affluent, and away from rising adults, no matter how poor. The great majority of 13ers in poverty, for example, are not eligible for a penny in subsidized healthcare. Finally, many are coming of age with unprecedented financial burdens. No previous American generation has arrived in the workforce paying such high tax rates on their first dollar of earnings, bearing such large high-interest student loans, facing so many anti-youth two-tier wage and benefit scales, or encountering such high housing costs relative to income. Gen Z, where are you at, guys? We've been here. We've been doing this for 30 years. It's just wild. It's just wild that I could literally go on to X right now and see some Gen Zer writing almost that exact paragraph about themselves.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Oh, I love this. I love this book. I love this chapter. It's so much fun. If the economy weakens, 13ers will feel stranded as a generation. Sensing little of the elder goodwill GIs enjoyed through the Great Depression, nor the public exaltation of youth that buoyed boomers through the stagflated 1970s. To their regret, 13ers will find themselves paying a price for the generational criticism they endured but did not answer through the 1980s. Young workers will find themselves perceived and treated as the most expendable employees. To keep their jobs, they will have to show not just promise, but bottom line results. In sharp contrast to the 1950s era experience of the rising silent, many 13ers will pass through their 20s unable to sustain the quality of life and especially the level of consumption they enjoyed as adolescents. Many of those from affluent families will boomerang back to parental homes, dragging out their child era dependency. Those from harder pressed families will fall into an unsupported poverty. As the year 2000 approaches, the worries of circa 1990 youth will crystallize into a bleak adult reality. Theirs may be America's first generation since the Gilded to reach age 40 with a lower standard of living than their parents had enjoyed at like age.
Yep. Well, that was true.
And it's just
more millennial.
And I'll tell a personal story that goes with this. I was raised in a middle class family, so we were not poor by any means, but we were not uber wealthy. But my dad owned his own business. My mom worked with him and doing the books and stuff for the business. It was a vending business, so chips and candy and soda. And so we had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. They bought it in like 1980. And that's where I grew up. So very middle class lifestyle. I didn't get everything and anything I wanted, but there were times where I got some pretty cool gifts. So we got to go on vacation or things like that. Mom had her certain brands that she bought, Tide detergent or Jif peanut butter or whatever. But we also bought some generic stuff as well. I get to college and I have like no financial education by this point. I was not taught to budget. I was not taught to, anything really about finance or money or anything. And I get to college and my first year or two in college, I tried to keep up my parents' level of lifestyle I got a credit card. And one thing my dad did before I went to college was he got me a card. Like he had like an 850 credit score and got me a credit card with no limit as an 18-year-old.
Oh man. Tell me how well that turned out for you.
I walked the hill at graduation 4 years later with about $25,000 in credit card debt, plus my $30,000 in student loans. Yeah. At 22. So, but the thing is though, I had wrecked myself financially so bad as a young person that when they were literally handing out mortgages like candy before the housing bubble popped, I couldn't get one because my finances were so bad. So it kept me from getting a mortgage that I couldn't afford anyways. So, maybe it was meant to be.
Look on the bright side. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is a disgrace that this stuff isn't taught at school. This is the stuff for me that should be what your senior year in high school is all about. How to do a budget, how to, pay your local taxes, how to, how to be a human being, how to be an adult in America, Yeah. I mean, we were in college at the time where you couldn't walk from building to building at my campus or through the student union without like 3 people with a clipboard being like, would you sign up for a credit card? You get a free t-shirt or you get a free pizza.
Yeah, that hasn't changed. It's still
Well, I know they've put some laws in place that have kind of limited it a bit, but I know it's still there. But that's how I ended up, with 7 credit cards as a 19-year-old that doesn't have. I mean, I was working full time. I had an income, but there was no reason I should have had, all those credit cards and all that debt. So it was a mess. It was a mess. So anyway, I really felt this paragraph because I tried to keep up that standard of living that my parents had given me growing up, which I was very thankful for. Are you okay?
Yeah. It was just some boxes.
I gotcha.
Right. That was scary.
Exactly. Every credit card was paycheck to spend the gap, and I shit you not. I shit you not. I got a cash advance of like $100 off my credit card once to go buy weed.
What's awesome is now you can actually use your debit.
Now you can actually do it. I know. I went to the dispensary the other day and paid with my debit card, and I was like, if only my 18-year-old self could see this.
I keep getting mine delivered, and I'm paying using Stripe.
Yep.
And using Apple Pay.
God bless America. I'm so glad that
Makes me
that
so happy.
I'm so glad the president changed the schedule on that. That was a good thing.
Yes, I am too. I was very happy about that.
Yeah. It should just be taken off the controlled substances list completely.
I agree wholeheartedly. They should sell it like tobacco. It's
Yep. It should be sell it like tobacco and regulated like alcohol. It's not rocket science.
Nope.
All right.
We should do almost every drug that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I would like to get drugs out of our criminal code, like the use of it and the possession of it. I would like to get that stuff out of the criminal code. Now, trafficking and that kind of stuff, I can understand that being an issue, but just usage and possession should be handled completely differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. Look, who cares what you do at home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and public intoxication laws still exist, so
right.
It's not like
Plus, when I was locked up, I would say 70% of the people in there were there for a drug crime of some type. So like the drug crimes really filled the beds of the prisons, and that just I'm all for law and order and being tough on crime if it's actual crime, like violence, theft, harm. But if locking people up because they have a drug problem makes no sense, and it taxes our system and our dollars in a way that's not necessary. Plus, it goes into the private, it incentivizes private prisons and stuff like that, and it's just it's not that I want.
Private prisons are bad.
Yeah, private prisons are bad.
Good. We agree.
And I know that Oregon. No, I don't think that should be a private industry. There's too much incentive. If you make it for-profit, there's too much incentive to lock people up for any reason, and I don't like that. So anyway, I wanted to collect a W. You're right. This mass decriminalization of drugs doesn't necessarily work either. But the way that they handled it, like I don't want to like be handing out needles and stuff either. Like I don't like the way that they did it either. But locking people up for having a drug problem doesn't make any sense either, because when you put somebody in there that's in there for using meth next to somebody that's in there for murder, which is what we do, and giving them the same things and like this, it should be different. Anyways. I agree that Oregon approach didn't work either, but the way we have it now isn't a very good approach either. So anywhoos,
but you know what the thing is things have to fail in order to figure out what works.
Absolutely.
That's how I think.
Yeah.
Hey, it didn't work in Oregon. Doesn't mean it can't work somewhere else differently.
Right, or different. Tweak the approach. Yeah. I like that we have 50 states, and each state can kind of like we should be able to approach these different problems in our own ways and kind of figure out what works. And nothing's going to be perfect, but I would like to do that with a lot of things. I would like to do that with drug policy, with healthcare, with our education system. I feel like all these institutions that we just take for granted as this is how things are our whole lives, like a lot of that stuff is crumbling and breaking down, and I think new approaches to things and new ideas for things should be encouraged, and not that we're just stuck in this system forever. But anyways, all right, let's move on because it's already 9:00. Okay.
Really, it's still sunshiny out here.
All right,
I live here for a reason.
Young workers will find themselves perceived and treated as the most expendable employees to keep their jobs. We went through all that. All right. As the year 2000 approaches. Okay. Sorry. My bad. These setbacks will send shockwaves to the most market-oriented rising generation since the circa 1920 lost. Unlike the silent and boom, 13er self-esteem rests heavily on hopes for economic success, a fact confirmed by countless youth polls over the past decade. Once they perceive themselves failing in the marketplace amid continuing criticism of their culture and moral deficiencies, 13ers are likely to react in the same hard-bitten manner as the Lost did when they encountered the missionary vice squads. Many will quietly blame themselves. Others will lash out against midlife boomers who will remain contemptuous of 13er ideas and aspirations, in stark contrast with how rising adult boomers were treated by their own next elders. Boomers, by then standing in the way of jobs, pay, and promotions, will require 13ers to prove themselves in a hotly contested marketplace, in effect, forcing them to move in what boomers will consider the wrong direction in order to survive. The boom's midlife quest to impose moral judgments on grown-up breakfast clubbers will strike a growing chorus of 30-year-olds as pitiless and Scrooge-like. Once alienation sets in, 13ers will accentuate behavior patterns that today strike older generations as frenetic, soulless, and physically shocking, confirming elder judgments that it's truly a wasted generation. 13ers will then put their own stamp on the American mood. There will be no mass movements or organized plans. Instead, they will burst forth with a hedonistic cross culture that will look, taste, smell, sound, and feel anti-boom. And that happened in the 90s. It will be defiantly non-cerebral, probing the physical devil where the like-age boom once probed spiritual sublime, seeking pleasure where next elders once sought beatitude, evoking the black prankishness of Halloween where the hippie culture once evoked the images of a spring rainbow. Young novelists, filmmakers, songwriters, and columnists will produce works that will seem interestingly, if puzzling, to the aging silent, wholly inarticulate to boomers, and keenly expressive to 13ers themselves. This clash of jaundiced rising adults with righteous midlifers will resemble the 1920s, not the 1960s. I think that's the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that they got that well. They did well there. By the late 90s, professional athletics will offer an exaggerated example of what will be happening to 13ers throughout the economy and culture. Pay will be increasingly market-driven and disconnected from the bargaining power of organized labor. They got that right. Year-to-year results will be rewarded more than lifetime achievement. Got that right.
Yeah.
The stars who can win, show Ruthian bravado, and fill arenas will make fantastic sums, enhanced by international bidding. At the other edge, non-star journeymen will lose ground and attract sympathy when they fail. The fun in sports will have a brassy quality, more akin to pure entertainment than civic ritual. Well, that's true. Yeah. Boomers will look upon 13er athletes as gladiators and will pointedly urge millennial children to look elsewhere for role models.
Rachel in the comments had a cool question, I think.
This one here?
Yeah, that one.
So what generation is keeping us stuck in our old approaches and operations for schools and such? I would say the boomers.
Yeah, as you scroll down, as you read down. It's the boomers.
It's the boomers. I got you. I got there.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
It's just an assumption. It's just, yeah. It's just as when I go through and talk about anything that's being held on to, it's the boomers.
Yep. It's always the boomers' fault.
Yep.
No. We love the boomers. We love our boomer parents.
We do. I have my whole life is centered around taking care of my aging boomer parent.
Oh, my boomer parent right now is coming through in spades. You know,
yep.
He's really helped me out the last month.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm inheriting 2 houses from three houses from my boomer parents.
Wow, look at you.
Plus a lot of land.
So you're the one who's getting it all.
Yes.
I get that. Well, y'all better have a party. That's all.
Yep. I'll have to have some big party at some point.
Back to the 90s party.
Yes. For my 50th, I'll probably do something like that. I don't know if I'm going to do something public for the channel like that, like where we could like a meetup or something, but we'll do something fun. Okay. And once I do my travel stuff next year, my plan is to, try to go to different parts of the country so I can have different small little meetups with people and viewers. All right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But YouTubers on the road have a good time.
Yeah. I know. I'm gonna start a second channel. It's just gonna be called Natalie's Second Channel to put all the travel stuff on. But I'll make videos for the main channel because I'm gonna do some, 80s movie filming locations and stuff that's related to the generation.
Nice. Start going to the conventions too.
Yeah, I do need to do some of that stuff.
And I'll tell you get an interview with some of the stars of Stand By Me right now.
Yeah, that's true. They're doing a bunch of stuff.
And I do know from personal experience. Will he's an awesome dude.
Oh, well, cool.
I've met him twice.
That's awesome. Love to meet up in SoCal. Yeah, I have a lot of viewers in California, which makes sense. There's a lot of people in California, but it's just kind of surprising because, like that, it's a big majority of my viewers are out west. Yep. Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Take you to some of the there's some cool cannabis places now.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson's got one.
Sweet.
West Hollywood.
Nice.
And it's really nice. Really nice.
Awesome. I'm in. I haven't been to California since I'd say 2010. So it's been about 15, 16 years. So it's been a minute. Been a minute since I've been there. I've been to California like 4 or 5 times, different places. I've been to LA. Well, Burbank because we went to see some TV shows back in the 90s and went to LA and went to Palm Springs. I've been up to Sacramento, been to San Francisco. I've never been down to San Diego though, which I really want to go.
You should have been to San Diego.
Yeah.
I lived there for 17 years.
Sweet.
San Diego.
The rest. Which is a German for Wells vagina, by the way. Please continue.
You stay classy, San Diego.
You stay classy, San Diego.
San Diego is more like the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Than the other part of California. There's you'll definitely find kindred spirits, and also San Diego is the home of the hippies in Ocean Beach. So
yeah.
It's such a strange dichotomy. And San Diego is a military town. So
well, yeah, I would definitely want to go see Fighter Town. I would definitely do some Top Gun stuff while I was out there.
Oh, I went to the air show when I was up there. When I lived there, it was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome. Got to see all the airplanes, and
I'll get out there.
Yeah, they have the and you can go on one of the battleships now.
Yeah,
and they have all sorts of cool shit down there. I can't live in San Diego again, but I love visiting.
Yeah,
I do. I love visiting. I have lots of friends down there. We were there on Super Bowl Sunday for a funeral.
Oh, well, that's not fun. That's not fun.
But, right. Yeah, it was a great time. Not the funeral, but the rest of
it. Throughout the economy, the 13ers' preoccupation, indeed their need, will be personal economic survival.
Yeah, personal survival.
Yep. For many, the clearest path to success may be to leave elder-led institutions and strike out on their own. They will seek market niches where quick deals matter more than big words, and will take care of tasks boomers may find useful, if a bit distasteful, delivery services or solid waste disposal, for instance. Such businesses will bring fortunes to a lucky few, but most of these engaged in them will be poorly paid. Looking for a lightning strike at success, 13ers will dart from job to job. Their mobility will discourage employers from investing in job training or from offering pensions to new hires. What's this pensions they speak of?
Yeah, that part, they blew the first part of it. They only got the yes, we will be going from job to job, but that is no longer discouraged.
Right, but it was very discouraged back when we started.
Yeah, but it was discouraged when we started. But at the same time, it was less and less and less. So,
Oh, yeah.
I never stayed at a job more than 4.5 years, ever.
Yeah. So, about 5 years is about my max as well. Yeah. But, by the time I got into the workforce, I didn't get into the workforce until the late 90s. And in my profession at the time, which was, I was a TV journalist. It made sense. Like you got the jobs when you moved when you got a job at a new station, when you moved up into a different station. So moving very quickly or a lot was not out of the question. It was expected.
No, in that industry.
That industry. So I never, never got into a world of, spending. But in the 90s were the time where it changed, where, once the globalism started and all the companies started moving out of the country,
and the .com
the whole idea of pensions and staying with a company for a long time just slowly went away.
I mean, when you could start, when I knew a couple of people who were jumping from startup to startup.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of our generation was like that
too. A lot of our generation. That part, I think,
wow.
Still utilizing the old paradigm.
Yeah.
Thinking
I think Deb only had 4 jobs in the last 20 to 30 years. I'm assuming you're a Gen Xer like us, so that's incredible. That's awesome. It's like, but a lot of us, especially when you have like a liberal arts degree and stuff, a lot of us don't even there's a difference between having a job and a career. The idea of a career where you get skilled into a certain trade or a certain profession, that was just fewer and fewer of us. We weren't in an industry where you could just career it and be in something for a really long time. 56, awesome. You're close to me.
I've had 19.
Yeah, if you want pension, you need to work in the public sector. That is true.
What is this pension you speak of?
Yeah. Rachel. Yeah, well, that's a good point. 1 job in 12 years, but my company's been acquired 3 times. That's another thing that we've had to deal with that our parents did not have to deal with, was constant buying out and consolidation and all that stuff of companies and private equity and all that crap.
And layoffs. I've been laid off 4 times myself.
Yeah. Right. Same industries in the mid-90s. Way to go, Deb.
Yeah, good for you.
All right.
What's the secret? Enlighten us.
Yes, please. Let us know.
I need a new career.
All right, got to keep going. The international marketplace will provide this generation with its most promising economic frontier and a way to take advantage of its underappreciated linguistic and computer skills. At times, young entrepreneurs will engage in global business activities their elders will look upon as piratical, opportunists, even traitorous. Many will seek their fortune in the service of America's creditors, helping them purchase, manage, or liquidate American assets. Lucrative opportunities may arise in nations with fledgling capitalist economies in enterprises like fast food, fashion, entertainment. Boomers will regard video stores in Prague as a symptom of decadence, and the silent will despairingly contrast their own Peace Corps days spent teaching English to Nigerians with young McDonald's employees teaching Hamburger 101 to Muscovites. 13ers will never be widely attracted to public service or the nurturing professions, teaching, medicine, and the ministry, in the manner of the GIs, silent or the boom. Instead, whatever their careers, they will aim for opportunities with a bottom line. Their economic realism will strike many elders as unfilling, selfish, even reactionary. But over time, 13ers will shrug off these complaints. Like all rising adult reactors before them, they will see themselves as nomads driven by necessity in a world whose economic harshness is not their fault. I feel that. I feel that last sentence.
Yeah, the rest of it, though, I kind of feel like they were a little off.
Really?
A little bit.
Where at?
I don't know. Move on. Back that up.
Well, that's all right. A lot of our generation went into finance and tech and things like that. These businesses that they're talking about, they'll seek their fortune in the service of America's creditors, helping them purchase, manage, or liquidate American assets. Global, working for global companies. Fast food, fashion, entertainment. We did a lot of that. These were definitely sectors that I feel like we were. We didn't go into the trades. We were never told to go into trades.
That's true.
So we went into these different types of things. These desk jobs, these office jobs, these computer jobs, these
white collar. We were white collar.
White collar.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense.
White collar and service. Either you were in white collar, either you got a degree and you went into like a white collar job, and if you didn't get a degree, you were in some kind of a service industry, the MIC jobs, the fast food, the retail,
right, rather than blue collar.
Yeah. So.
Okay, I feel that.
Yeah. Okay. Even as they scramble after new opportunities, 13-year-olds will react with skepticism to world events that elders may hail as promoting human freedom. Any further euphoria of elders silent over breaking down barriers will remind them of their chaotic childhood, something that felt good to every generation but their own. If chaos brings new ethnic or economic unrest, and if that leads to conflict, it will be their job, not their elders, to fight any war necessary to clean up the mess left behind this sort of modern war, as Hemingway put it, in which you die like a dog for no good reason. Reminiscent of the doughboy lost, any homecoming celebration for 13-year soldiers will be tinged with elder criticism and will heighten feelings of alienation. In war or out, 13-years will find themselves bearing a major share of the burden for any economic or social transitions, but they won't be easily suckered. Like the don't tread on me liberty of the 1760s, life's hard knocks will have taught these 30-year-olds to stay away from the complicated abstractions of the aging silent and the high-minded crusades of midlife boomers. As the boomer rise to power, 13-year votes will turn even more anti-government than they are today. As boomers begin endorsing global crusades, 13-years will turn towards isolationism, and like the 1920 era's lost, will take pleasure in revealing elder lies. In families, communities, and national politics, 13-years will press to simplify the complex, narrow the bloated, and eliminate the unworkable. They will be drawn to blunt, no-nonsense candidates. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see if I have any.
I mean, we'll be more ethically reversed.
Yep. Let's see here. 13-year culture will be far more ethically diverse than the booms. That is true. Where the lost catapulted Eastern and Southern Europeans to prominence, 13-years will do the same for Hispanics and Asians. That is true. The Chinese democracy movement and political controversies in Latin America will provide the grist for poignant intergenerational clashes. With this new ethnic diversity will come a new youth-propelled racism and a propensity for hate crimes. Lacking a cultural center of gravity, 13-years of all backgrounds, including the white middle class, will feel at risk in ways their boomer and silent parents did not. The most stellar young ethnic achievers will encounter a festering racial hostility from their own peers, much as the Jewish loss did in the 1920s. Interesting.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I can't speak to that either.
But I don't know what the Jewish loss did in the 20s.
Right.
But I can definitely. But if they're talking about racial hostility from their own peers, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, definitely. Because just because you're a certain race doesn't mean that you're going to vote a certain way or, believe certain things. So, and I think that's one of my big problems with like identity politics is like the black voting group or the Hispanic voting group or the white voting group. Like, just because like I understand that there are certain issues for certain groups of people, but to think that they just all believe the same thing or are going to vote the same way is weird. Oh. They're gonna have conflicts inside of race, just like you have conflicts inside of a culture, So, let's see.
You can have the same conflicts inside of a religion too.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just thinking about like one of my old friends is much more Orthodox Jewish than I am, and is completely opposite political ideology.
Really? Yeah. See, that's why I really hate identity politics, because it doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me. And same city, same everything.
Yeah.
And he's a great dude.
Right. I mean, you can have two kids in the same family. Like me and my brother are 18 months apart. You can have two kids in the same family, raised the same way in the same circumstances, and they have completely different views when they're older. It's like to think that we can group people up by, these kind of characteristics.
I have no siblings.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Oh, you didn't tell? You couldn't tell?
I thought either you were an oldest or you were an only.
I'm an only.
Yeah.
Have an only.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
I was going to make sure of that.
Yeah.
Also, another kid with my ex because she's crazy.
Right. I understand that. I should have had kids. I should have gotten married and had kids. It's my biggest life regret because, I should have had kids. But that's a conversation for another day.
Not forever.
Most of the excuse me. Most of the children allowed to grow up poor or unskilled in the 70s and 80s will carry their incapacities and pathologies with them into adulthood. Through the 90s, unmarried mothers and the undereducated of both sexes will remain just as unemployable and dependent in their 30s as they were in their teens. Efforts at adult remedial education will be half-hearted and ineffectual. Worse, many of today's youth gangsters will ripen into their adult facsimile, waging Capone-style wars with police, most of whom by then will be canny 13-years themselves. Older generations will blame the nation's problem of crime, drugs, and disintegrating inner cities on their attitude of treating life as a game. By the late 1990s, as 13-years wholly fill the crime-prone phase of life, street crime will be perceived as evil and the criminal beyond rehabilitation, except through the sternest of regiments. That got this wrong. Once boomer judges go to work, this will almost surely become the most permanently warehoused and executed generation in American history. Nor will many 13-years rise to defend their criminal peers. By their ethos, if you're bad and are caught, you don't complain about your punishment. Well, that's true. No, that was a really weird paragraph.
I thought I thought we were more incarcerated by now. I thought the riot that was during that time period in the 90s. Yeah, it did actually rise quite a bit.
It did in certain areas because of the 94 crime bill really and 3 strikes laws and things. So they did do that. That's true. Okay, I will give you that. They did get the boomers did pass some harsh laws both federally and at the state level in the 90s. I mean, you look at the marijuana laws just for instance in the 90s compared to now. I mean, they were, so that makes sense. Definitely those warehouse executed, not so much. All the death penalty laws have pretty much gone away. Let's see. But yeah, I can see this. We should watch Joe Biden's speech on the floor of the Senate for the 94 crime bill. It would probably just be this paragraph in a speech. These young whippersnappers. Yep. Let's see. Let's keep moving. Rising 13-ers will sense they will never gain much collective esteem from others. And also, before we move on, that last paragraph, it kind of notes the whole idea of class mobility has started to really take a nosedive with our generation. It's like, if you're born poor and unskilled, that's how you're going to be when you're in your 30s. And like for a lot of our generation. And so that whole idea of class mobility, of getting educated, making money, moving out of that poor class, was less likely for our generation than it was for previous generations. Is that fair?
And then later generations, it became more likely. Because the value of the education became minimal.
Right.
And it just happened that, people started to exploit the culture to get ahead, really.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to explain the rise of influencer culture to the point where that is a viable option for people to actually, move their stations in life.
It's the new movie star. I mean, because there's no more movie stars and TV stars. So that's how you.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
The movie star of it's the moving to Hollywood in the dawn of golden age of movies. Now this being going viral, all it takes now is to go viral, I think.
Right.
And listen, I'm not making a judgment call on that.
Right.
I'm just pointing out that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's going to be until until something changes our culture and we as a people agree to stop giving it as much credence as we are.
Right. Yes. I think this one thing that we're going to see in this turning into the first, through the crisis era, I think a lot of the crisis era that we don't talk about, we talk about politics, but talk about entertainment and new media and communication. I think we're going through a very big crisis of media and communication and entertainment at this time. Yeah. And just the simple idea of we've gone from movies and TV to streaming, and it has broken up the industries that we grew up with. And so, and how we used to be entertained. The same thing can be said for the legacy media. We're going through this big thing here. And I think that when we get through the crisis and get through the turning, we're going to emerge with a completely different media and journalism and entertainment ecosystem. I don't think influencers are going to stick around like they are. I think that's going to change. The idea of different apps and different streaming services and all this stuff is not sustainable. No, and they're gonna have to it's gonna have to morph into something.
It's gonna consolidate.
Yeah,
it's gonna consolidate. You can already see that it's happening because you've got there are hundreds and hundreds of streaming platforms out there, but there's really only a dozen that are making any headway. That are actually producing content.
Right.
And are viable platforms going forward, and they are consolidating because you've got the consolidation of the industry as a whole, because you've gone from, what was it, 6, 7 studios now to 4, 5?
Yeah, and even the studios are owned by tech companies, and so the whole idea of a movie studio to make movies and the whole industry they had in LA and Hollywood of TV and that TV industry that employed so many people for so long, like that whole
still does
whole but I mean, like they're not hardly shooting anything anymore in LA, and like it's just changing so much, and I think that we're gonna see we're still in the middle of it. We have no idea how it's going to play out. The other thing is that, there's been I'm on nostalgia Twitter. Like I don't get a lot of politics, but I get a lot of nostalgia content.
Okay.
There's been so much nostalgia about the 80s and 90s.
Oh yeah.
Lately. And I think, and there's been talk about how like Gen Z doesn't know old movies or old TV shows or doesn't know old stuff from like the 80s, 90s. They don't know a lot of that stuff. Their movie knowledge their film literacy is really, really bad. And, but I was talking to somebody. I was like, well, it's the previous generation that influences your popular culture. It's, it's the previous generation. When you're a kid, you're in love with what the previous generation is making, movie wise and TV wise and music wise. And the Gen Zers didn't get really anything like that from the millennials. All of the efforts went into video games and TikTok and YouTube, and that millennial generation didn't go to Hollywood and make big movies or put on big TV shows. And so it's changing. Everything is changing in that world. And I think that that's something that we should keep an eye on during this crisis, is how just entertainment, communication, journalism, media, the people that are on the screen, all that stuff is just, it's going to change very quickly. And especially with AI coming into the game now. I mean, it's just,
oh, I know. I think that, the future isn't influencers. The future is AI.
Yeah.
I watch way too much anime. I've been worried about AI since the 80s. Okay.
Oh, wow. Well, that's true. I mean, ever since T2, I've been, a little freaked out about it.
T2, try Terminator 1.
Well, that's true. But I don't think I saw Terminator 1 until right before Terminator 2 came out.
Oh, wow.
Because the first Terminator came out, I was like 7 when the first Terminator came out. Yeah. So I didn't see it like right away when it first came out. I didn't see it till later.
In theaters, but I definitely saw it right away. I remember renting the video cassette as soon as it was out.
Yeah, I remember going to see T2 at the theater. That was really fun. That was a really fun experience.
That was a big movie in '91.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yep, come with me if you want to live.
Come with me if you want to live.
Flint says, let's see, hold on. The media landscape can never go back to what it was like in the 90s. AI is only going to make it more impossible to go back. And you're right. No. It's not going to go back to what it was in the 90s, but there's going to have to be.
It's like saying it's not going to go back to what it was in the 50s either.
Yeah, like there's going to be a new evolution of it. I mean, I can't imagine. I honestly can imagine, like, if the companies just did it, if they just shut down their streaming platforms and like, we're going to put all of our shows on broadcast TV again, if they just did it and kind of go back to like an older model with a little bit of modern touch, like have like one streaming platform for day after TV shows or whatever, but they're going to have to change something. Otherwise, nothing's going to, I mean, I can't find anything anymore. I can't find a movie, a TV show, a sporting event. Like they're gonna have to do something to bring back the more of the consistency of what we grew up with in the 80s and 90s. But I know we can't go back to that.
I think you just need to work on your Google feed. It's not hard. That's all I ever do. I'm like, okay, what streaming service is this movie on?
Well, it's not like it's not that I can't find it. It's that it's always on the one I don't have.
Well, there's a different story. I have most of them myself, and I don't have them.
But I don't want to have 74. I don't want to have 74 subscriptions to so I can watch this movie that I want to watch.
I mean, I get that. It's still cheap. To me, it's still cheaper than cable was at the end of cable. And on top of that, there are free platforms on the internet that do exactly what you're saying. I literally have like 400 channels on my TV that are like the old TV channels that are live, and you can watch whatever you want. There's a whole channel for the Brady Bunch. There's a whole channel for sports. That's still there. It's still there for people.
Everything's just there's so much. What's there?
I'm not saying there's not a lot, but if I wanted to watch Cotter, I could. Right? It's on. There's a channel. There's a streaming channel for it.
It's just it was the there's a fallacy or there's a rule about there's a point where you have so much choice that nothing.
I get that.
You can't like. Yeah. They're just I like a world of more curated entertainment. That's just and this whole everybody just get the hyper fractionalized. I know that's where we're headed.
For me, like I have this. I use Feedly for a lot of I get my news that way. I subscribe to various sources.
Yeah.
And I have it all segmented into different things. Like I have fandom, I have comic books, I have news, I have science, whatever I'm into, I have a little category for, and I just subscribe to all these different feeds. And from there I get the especially in the fandom stuff, I get here's what's coming out, here's what's coming on streaming. Here's a movie that we think you're going to like. And I let the algorithm, cater to I try to use it to my advantage, and I embrace the fact that, okay, if it knows I like Star Trek, it's going to give me The Expanse or,
right.
Whatever. So in that way, I think it's just a matter of how comfortable you are personally with allowing it to have that much influence on you. And personally, for me, I don't really care because I would rather think about other things, It's like,
well, sure, no, I get that.
Something that I'm interested in, and I don't really care, Like, that sounds good.
I guess I think what I miss is just being able to discover things, because like it's like now if you're only going and you get recommendations and that stuff is good too, but it's like, I wouldn't have discovered a lot of TV shows and movies if it wasn't just the only thing that was on in front of me. And and like I guess that I'm kind of missing that kind of a thing where it's like, if you're just going out seeking what you know about or what you, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
sure, it's still part of the echo chamber. You're going to get what you put into it,
right?
I hear where you're coming from, and it's just for me, I wanted this from again, I mean, I love Star Trek, and I always loved the idea that on Star Trek in the 23rd century, they could just go to their library computer and call up any work of music that had ever been recorded. And
Yeah.
I just thought that was the greatest thing ever. And that you
Yeah.
didn't have to have any physical media or nothing. It was just stored in the memory of the computer.
Yeah.
And so
I
you
love
want
physical
to
media.
hear Beethoven's Fifth Symphony recorded in 1967, it would just
Right.
boom, there it is. That's my idea of really cool thing, and the futuristic. That's not to say, listen, I love books too, but let's face it, I don't do a whole lot of reading of physical books anymore just because my eyes can't take it. And it's
Right.
much easier for me to read on my computer than anything else at this point in my life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I'm never going to stop buying books.
Right.
I'm done with physical media, though, just for the most part,
Yeah.
because I have collected physical media my entire life. At first, it was records, then it was tapes, then it was CDs, then it was VHS, then it was DVDs and Blu-rays and comic books. I have too much of it. And I've gotten to the point where I'm literally, why am I hoarding this stuff that I'm never going to use again?
I'll take it off your hands. I'm
I
buying
know.
it all.
At one point, I had probably 1,000 DVDs. I'm down to
Yeah.
less than 200.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't do it anymore. I just
Yeah.
I can't. I
No, I
would
get it.
never have it just available to me digitally.
Right.
And I get it. I understand. It's really hard, and it's not like I don't have. There are stuff that I don't want to get rid of that I always want to be able to have and watch.
Yeah.
I
Well,
do
and the other thing is
before.
just the idea of, when you're on subscription services and everything's digital, stuff can be taken away, stuff can be altered,
Oh, I know. I
stuff
hate
can
that.
be,
But
like, all that kind of stuff. But I
Yeah.
think ultimately, and then I want to move on because it's 9:30 and we still aren't even close to being done.
good company.
I miss the community of everybody watching a TV show together or going to an opening weekend of a movie.
Sure.
And I think that's what I think ultimately that's what it comes down to.
I will say this though, that's not gone. Because
Yeah.
ask anybody about the pit. People are watching the pit. And like I've been in the ER the last month. It's the topic of conversation for people right now. So it's happening still. It's just on a different basis now because the pit does come out every Thursday like a TV show.
Right.
And it's once a week.
Here's one more thing, and then we're definitely moving on.
Yeah, go ahead.
And not to go down the road of politics, but it's really hard to watch a lot of new stuff when it just has an agenda and a voice that you just Hollywood doesn't like half of the country, it feels like. And so when you don't believe a lot of the things or agree with a lot of things of all the TV shows and movies that are all the stuff that's in it, and you don't want to watch it, it's like it makes it really hard to like want to discover new things, and if that makes any sense. But I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it's very hard that it feels like nothing gets made for me anymore. And I'm a 48-year-old white woman in the Midwest. Nothing's gonna be made, but it's like, I don't know. I'm not a Hollywood liberal. I'm not a left coast or right coast elitist. I'm not a liberal person. And so I feel like it didn't matter what your politics were when we were younger because stuff could be great no matter what. There was no agenda in it, but it doesn't feel that way with the stuff that they're making now. And I wish we could get, I don't know, stuff that doesn't make me feel like that. Anyways, moving on. We're still in the 90s here. We got to move. We're supposed to be talking about the future. Rising 13ers will sense they will never gain much collective esteem from others. Americans will today look upon 25-year-olds as a wasted bunch will, a decade from now, look upon 35-year-olds in much the same way. Any stroke of luck they enjoy in the marketplace, whether lower housing prices or wage inflation in the service sector, will be proclaimed bad news by older generations. Their greatest skills will go relatively unnoticed. The capacity to observe, to identify unmet needs, to be smooth and conceal feelings when necessary, to move quickly when the moment is right, and to make sure that whatever people try does in fact work as intended. Likewise, 13ers will come to believe that the best way to win individually is by taking incredible risks. They will figure that those who play by the mostly boomer rules probably won't get anywhere. So why play by the rules? Many will thus embrace what might be called the lottery ticket mentality. A 13er will be prepared to risk a loss, since he's already been losing, for a tiny chance to win big. Their career paths will take on a kinetic frenzy. 33-year-olds will jump at opportunities their elders will find inconsequential and take on long odds their elders will find incomprehensible. Their greatest successes will come in small businesses that out-hustle and, thanks to low wages and benefits, underpriced elder-dominated rivals. The U.S. Postal Service may well come under ruinous attack from new enterprises run by piece-rate 13ers who, as veteran bicycle messengers, delivery drivers, and computer hackers, will know how to move information more cheaply and reliably than tenured civil servants. They got that right there at the very end. All right, that's what our generation did. Our generation figured out how to move information more cheaply and reliably than tenured civil servants. Do you agree with that? I mean, we were the ones that created the tech, like all the Silicon Valley guys from the late 90s and in the 2000s, all the Gen Xers they were the ones that built all the, all of this stuff, came up with all of this stuff. We might have had some boomers at the head, at the head of the companies, but it was the Gen Xers in these companies that were building all this stuff. Am I wrong? Am I wrong or
no? You're right. I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's okay.
I'm a little distracted by the
okay.
chat.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
And I'm not real happy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can we have a commercial where the husband isn't a homer? That'd be nice. All the dads on
fine, but the one above it is the problem.
Oh. Well, but I mean, what's the problem with that?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with showing gay families?
Nothing saying there's anything wrong with. He's saying that not every family is mixed with a gay kid, except on TV. I get what he's trying to say. I don't feel like it's trying to be mean. There are families that are mixed with gay children. Not every one of them are, but everything on TV seems to be pushing an agenda. Does that make sense?
I don't agree.
Okay, well, we don't have to agree. That's what
I don't agree that the TV show is like that. I agree. I think there's plenty of shows that cater to other. I think there's plenty of entertainment out there that caters to both sides. And besides that, but the fact that that is being used as divisive, that somehow a family showing a gay character is wrong.
That's not what he's saying.
I don't know. That's
every show. I think that's what he's saying.
Okay, well,
yeah.
It's
just he's just saying it's overrepresented. I mean, is that not?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think you cannot be overrepresented of marginalized communities. I don't think that can be overrepresentative. Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but
yeah,
I don't know. I just it
feels like
people in my family.
Oh, I do too. I mean that's I don't think that's not even what the issue is that I think what he's trying to say is that the majority or the people the if you're not marginalized, you just get like ignored in entertainment these days. Like we just can't have fun TV shows for everybody. Like it has to be about a marginal. We have to always put that in there. Like that's what brings politics into everything. I think that's what he's trying to say. It's just overrepresentation. Like the demands for we have to have this many this or this many that when we just can't have.
Oh, people.
So, Sean, formerly artist John Cuckask. I think that's how he says it. It's just that it's like it's just in everything, and for the quotas. That's what. Yeah, that's it. That's I think what we're trying to say. But anyways, moving on. All right. Despite their economic problems, 13ers will blossom into America's leading generation of shoppers, thanks largely to purchases they will make for others in extended families or in new shopping services. Accordingly, they will have a huge influence on products, styles, and advertising, much as the Lost had in the 1920s. Once marketers realize this, the American media will be barraged with messages stressing bluntness over subtlety, actions over words, the physical over the cerebral. I think this is wrong. I think they skipped us completely in this. I think it went straight to millennials. Or am I wrong? What do you think?
No, I think you're dead right.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. We stopped being the target of advertisers and youth culture. God, it was not even in the 90s wasn't even over.
Yeah. It was right there at the end. It was right there at the turn of the century that it switched.
Yeah, 97, 98.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't count anymore. You hit 25. We don't care about you.
Yeah. We're over it.
It was all millennial.
Right.
Millennial.
But there was a brief moment at the in the 90s into the 2000s that we still were relevant. The most successful of these messages will hint at 13er alienation and appeal to a sense of dark humor. I got that right. Many ads that effectively target 13ers will be pointedly anti-boomer. For example, Pepsi might hit back at the 1990 Coca-Cola ads showing 40-ish jean-clad boomers on a verdant hillside teaching their millennial children at the Woodstockian chant, "I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony." A retaliatory ad might run a clip of that blissful scene, jerk it fast forward to an image of old hippies, and end with a metallic clang and a message. Drink Pepsi, the anti-Coke. Yeah, I think they did. Two sets of questions will haunt their rising adulthood. First, will their silent and especially boomer elders learn to appreciate that this generation does indeed offer a pragmatic sensibility that America will find important, even essential, in the decades ahead? Will the silent stop despairing over how 13ers are turning out so unlike what they had envisioned? And will they instead see young adults who know how to compensate for some of the silent's own work's mistakes? Will boomers come to realize the 13ers' very different childhood environment has endowed them with valuable antidotes to the boom's own worst tendencies? Or will boomers continue to look on them not as juniors, but as inferiors? That one.
You got it. That one. It was that one.
The answers to those questions will affect the depth of 13er alienation and the surliness of this forthcoming generational clash.
It really is on the scale of 1 to 10.
We're right here at the very end, I think. Hold on. Yeah, we're getting into the midlife. The second set of questions has more to do with 13ers themselves. By the spin of the cycle, whatever phase of life they happen to occupy will be, as it already has been, tempest-tossed, laden with perhaps the wrong kind of adventure for people their age. Over 4 centuries, reactor generations have been assigned the thankless job of yanking American history back on a stable course, and afterward have gotten few rewards for their sacrifices. Will this realization prompt 13ers to burn out young, or will it hardly harden a gritty self-confidence around an important generational mission? As America's most perceptive living generation, 13ers can recognize a few crucial facts of life that boomers will not. For example, that without a little bad pragmatism, even the most noble boomer dreams will never get off the ground. More to the point, without a few black sheep to slow the shepherd, those aging boomers might really do something crazy. All right, I'm gonna speed through this as fast as I can. Midlife, 2004 to 2025. That's early in the new century, as 40-ish 13ers watch graying Aquarians get into national leadership, they will appreciate whatever bad hand history dealt them. They at least grew up with clear heads. Their pleasure-seeking era will draw to a close, along with the worst of the idealist reactive tussle. Boomers might then start discerning in them the rough-hewn tools needed to achieve lofty boomer visions, and in return, 13ers might see in boomers the leadership without which they might have never found larger purpose in their own lives. Sometime around the year 2010, this generation will hit a hangover mood like that of the Lost in the early 1930s and the Liberty in the late 1760s, a feeling of personal exhaustion mixed with a new public seriousness. 40 and 50-year-olds will fan out across an unusually wide distribution of personal outcomes, reminiscent of a night at the bingo table. A few will be wildly successful, others totally ruined, while the largest number will have lost a little ground since the day of boomer midlife. Many of the early rising stars will now be replaced in the limelight by steadier peers, the equivalent of lost brains, in what may seem like a 21st century revenge of the nerds. Midlife Asian Americans will establish their ethnic group as a major cultural influence and intellectual force, akin to the midlife German Gilded or midlife Jewish Lost.
That is true. Most of our Gen X
CEOs are all Asian.
And they're all nerds.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Well, remember their definition of Gen X is 61 to 81. So, well, there's some leeway here as far as how you define Gen X and what age they're at. So, remember that.
I feel like my life's getting over.
What?
I feel like my life's getting over and I'm 55.
I feel like I'm just getting started.
Good for you.
48.
Good for you. You can have a crisis that almost killed you a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I could have died. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Could have got hit rock on my head and never gotten up.
That would have been crazy.
Would have been.
That's why you don't leave the house, Grendelson. That's why you're not supposed to go nowhere.
I haven't gone anywhere in 4 weeks now. Comic book day on Saturday. I need some free comic books. Midlife Jewish Lost. What does that mean? The midlife Jew. I think they're talking about. There was a cohort of folks of the Jewish persuasion in the Lost generation that were treated very badly by society. Anti-Semitism was on the rise. So
let's see.
I don't know if they're. I can't think.
Into the Jewish Lost or midlife. Let's see. Oh, midlife Asian Americans will establish their ethnic group as a major cultural influence and intellectual force, like the German Gilded in midlife or the midlife Jewish Lost. The Jewish Lost generation at midlife, they were the ones that created Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
So they
Not about them.
Yeah. So that they became they established their ethnic group as a major cultural intellectual force. They did it through Hollywood and the media. I mean, they
I actually have a whole book about it.
Yeah.
My Jewish uncle gave me a big old book about how the Jews created Hollywood.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Oh, it's
100% true. And all of the guys that created the big studios, Mayer and Goldwyn, they came from the same area in Eastern Europe, like the same towns,
same little towns in Eastern.
Yes, all of them, and they didn't know each other. They didn't meet each other until they got here,
and then they hated each other.
Because they all went to Hollywood after Edison made it impossible to show movies on the East Coast because he had a monopoly over his patent and everything. And so you had to get approval from Edison in order to show any movies or do anything in the East Coast. So they moved all the way to Hollywood and started their own companies. And that's where we get the start of Hollywood. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting story.
I love Hollywood. Myself.
Yeah, I love Hollywood history, and I find it fascinating. I
love being in Hollywood. I love being around it. I love everything about it. I love Hollywood Boulevard. It's just so.
Even now.
I love it now. Yeah, no, I love it. I love everything about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Whenever I see Hollywood Boulevard now, like on TV or on internet, it's always like the drugs and the homelessness and the dirtiness. It's like never anything Hollywood anymore.
No, you know it's not that bad. It's overblown on TV. That's for sure.
I figured that. I figured that you're only seeing the worst of the worst.
Yeah,
and
it's a lot more touristy now than it ever has been.
Right. It's just that I find it fascinating that the area, the state, and Los Angeles itself hasn't done more to like really preserve and really like keep stuff cleaned up and looking good. It seems like it, again, I don't live there, but it seems like all the studios, everything's been taken down. They're all the backlots, all the all the different locations
happening.
Yeah, and it's just like, I'm just surprised that they didn't try to do more to preserve that. It was such an important part of the city and the state, and I don't know. They closed the Arby's? Well, that's
that was months ago. They had Arby's over.
But they've got the meats.
They had the sign. They had the original sign, the big old neon sign. It ended up out in Coachella, I heard.
Oh.
That Arby's, by the way, sucked. I went there, but they turned it into for a while they turned it into a drive-through pizza slice place, and it was really yummy. Too expensive, but it was yummy. $6 for a slice of pizza.
That's a little pricey.
Oh yeah, and it was it was
a big hit. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's true. The streets in LA are shit.
Yeah.
It's downtown is bad.
Yeah, I've heard.
Is still closed. Yeah. Hopefully it's going to reopen soon. The two big theaters in Westwood are supposed to reopen too. The Academy Museum is amazing, by the way. You really want to talk about Hollywood preserving. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Museum is really freaking cool.
I would love to go see that.
I can get in for free.
Really?
Yeah.
I will need to go see that. That's one thing I would love. I mean, I love Hollywood history. I love Hollywood
movie history. In their theater screen is amazing.
I bet.
They have this huge theater that's like inside of what looks like the Death Star, I swear to God. And the George Lucas Museum's open.
Cool.
I want to work there. Actually, tried.
Yeah, that'd be a fun place to work. All right, we gotta keep moving. It's 10 o'clock. I've been doing this for 3 hours, and we're not even through midlife. So I love the conversations, but we will be back next week for
the fourth turning.
The beginning of the fourth turning.
Which is not the fourth turning is here, because that's a separate book.
Yeah, the fourth turning is here is not it. You want the fourth turning, published in 1997. It is also on the Internet Archive. So if you don't want to buy a copy, you can get it on the Internet Archive for free. And so yeah, that's what we're starting next week. But let's get through this as fast as we can. I appreciate you guys for hanging out with us tonight.
Speed run it. I'll shut up.
We're going to speed run it. This is the future. And we can talk a little bit about it next week as we get into the fourth turning about some of the future stuff. But yeah, we just get to talking, and that's just how it goes. And that's great. But this is a big chapter. I love this first line on page 415. 13ers will make near perfect 50-year-olds.
I love that. I was a near perfect 50-year-old.
I'm 48, but I'm near perfect.
Well, I got a few pounds. This is how bad my 50th birthday was. It was in the middle of COVID. I didn't get a 50th birthday. It sucked.
No, say it again. What was that?
It was in the middle of COVID. I didn't get a 50th birthday.
Oh, that sucks. My lighter is not working. I've actually cached a lighter live on stream.
Wow.
You know how rare that is to cache a lighter? When I was in college, we used to just have a bowl and you would just throw a lighter in and you'd take one out. It was like take one, leave one. So I never got to the end. Okay.
Yeah, I've lived in houses where stealing a lighter was a criminal offense.
I used to get the biggest, most gaudiest lighters to keep people from stealing.
Oh, that wouldn't keep anybody from stealing. Thank you. I am 55 now, so
belated 50th birthday party in Discord.
Go to Lowry's. That was awesome.
All right, I'm gonna read. I'm reading. 13ers will make near perfect 50-year-olds. On the one hand, they will be nobody's fools. If you really need something done and you don't especially mind how it's done, these will be the guys to hire. On the other hand, they will be nice to be around. More experience in their elders and their stark reality of pleasure and pain. 13ers will have that Twain-like twinkle in the eye, that Truman-esque capacity to distinguish between mistakes that matter and those that don't. In business, they will excel at cunning, flexibility, and deft timing, a far cry from the ponderous principal's first boomer style. In sports, the combination of 13er coaches and millennial players may well produce a new golden era of athletic teamwork. In the military, 13ers will blossom into the kind of generals young millennial soldiers would follow off a cliff. Their leading politicians may strike old boomers as uncerebral, yet plain-spoken, sensible, quick on their feet, and more inclined to deal than to argue.
Maybe.
Yeah, there was some truth in that paragraph. It wasn't all correct, but some of it.
What Gen X politician?
Huh?
I don't even know.
I can't understand you.
What Gen X politicians do we even have right now?
Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, Marco Rubio, the entire cabinet of Trump right now is Gen X. Let's see who else. I think is Kamala Harris a Gen Xer?
I think barely.
Barely. I think she's right on the cusp. So yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna see, a lot.
We have to think that hard about it.
Yeah, but here's a question: can you name a millennial politician outside of AOC, Mamdani, or JD Vance?
No.
Exactly. So we're going to see my prediction is after this midterm, we are going to see the rise of the next generation of politicians. We have to. The boomers are going to have to go. So it's either going to be Gen X or millennial. And who is it going to be? Kamala Cusper. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. So I really think because the next president of the United States is going to be a Gen Xer or a millennial.
Agreed.
It's not going to be a boomer.
Nope.
It can't be. It really can't be.
Because they're going to be all dead.
Yeah. And I don't see our country voting for another boomer. I really don't.
Yeah, definitely don't.
So it's our next president is going to be a Gen Xer or a millennial. That is going to be interesting to see who rises. Because right now we can hardly name any millennial or Gen X politician. Look to your governors, look to your state governors. They are all Gen X. All of them. So, yeah. I hope Gen X is next too, but I don't care. Florida governor, Ron DeSantis. Yeah, he's a Gen Xer. Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, like look to all your state governors. That's where you'll find your Gen Xers, your Gen X politicians. Okay. Moving along. In the early 21st century, 13ers will make their most enduring mark on national culture. Their now mature keenness of observation and their capacity to step outside themselves will kick off exciting innovations in literature and filmmaking. We had some really great movies in the aughts and in the 90s. The Brat Pack will expand and mature into the best on-screen generation since The Lost. I agree with that too. We had some great actors. The last of the movie stars, Tom Cruise and Keanu, and all of them were the last of the movie stars.
Yep.
The Brat Pack will expand and mature. Okay, as parents of growing children, 13ers will by now be too affectionate, too physical, too eager to prevent teenagers from suffering the same overdose of reality they will recall from their own youth. In so doing, they will tip the scales towards overprotection of children. Boy, did they get that right. Much as the Liberty did in the 1780s and the Gilded in the 1860s and the Lost in the 1930s. Midlife parents, mothers especially, may hear themselves criticized by millennials for momming a pliant new generation of adaptives. I mean, we went way too far to the other side of the parenting. This helicopter every minute of the day is booked up for whatever, like, I can't believe we did that to our kids. And it was hard. Like there were times where I just told Max, like, just go out with your friends, be back at midnight, just go. Like I cannot helicopter you. It's hard not to, but how did we do that? How did we do that?
I didn't. I definitely told my kid, do whatever you need to do. Don't bug me. I'll take you somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, but we went to a whole world of everyone gets a trophy and afternoon play dates and you have this after school thing and this after school thing and this weekend sports league and this, like, every minute of every day is just booked.
Yeah,
so just let them be bored.
I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Not as a parent.
Yeah. Well, I know, but if you see the general direction of parenting over the last,
no, they did
in our generation.
I saw it. I saw other parents do it.
Yep.
I kept shaking my head, going, "It's too much. I don't need that much, dude. You're that involved with your kid's life.
Yeah, it's too much.
Too much. The aforementioned Jewish.
Yeah, Lasky became a helicopter.
Yeah, but why?
I know, but why? I don't get it either. I guess
I don't know, because it's weird, because it was us, but it was also the older or the youngest.
The youngest boomers started it. The youngest boomers started it,
and then we continued it, and not even sure why. I don't get it. Society changed. Things changed. I guess we kind of wanted our kids to have. I mean, I think we always want our kids to have a better life than we did, and I guess for us we did feel a great deal of neglect, and so we wanted to reverse that trend.
Right.
And instead
I don't want my kid to.
We went over.
I'm going to be there for my kid. I'm going to let them know that I care. I'm going to. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also we didn't know when to stop.
Yeah, they needed a commercial that said they should have gotten a commercial that said it's 10 p.m. Let go of your kids and let them do their own shit, instead of do you know where your children are? It's just the opposite, It's crazy, but okay.
I mean, it's different. I know. I never sent my kid off, to go play outside and not come back until dark.
Right.
That never happened because we couldn't. You would not. If I did that, I would be arrested.
Yeah. Well, laws change, things change. Yeah. Now, in a small town, it was much easier.
Sure.
So
I was
that
in San Diego, and I was allowed to mess around and be on my own. Not in LA though.
Yeah. Okay. 13ers will see and evaluate the crisis of 2020 with the sharpest eye of all living generations. By life cycle position and pure personality, they will have the most capacity for maneuver and can be expected to produce the crisis era's most colorful leaders and stigmatized traitors, reminiscent of how the Cavaliers produced the courageous rebels as well as the Stewart collaborators, the Liberty, the rugged patriots, as well as the raging Tories, the Gilded, the blue and gray commanders, as well as the Copperheads and bandits, and the Lost, the managers of D-Day, as well as the isolationists and fascists. Some untamed 13er factions may try to pitch the national mood toward dangerous adventure, like the pre-Civil War Gilded, or toward dangerous isolationism, like the pre-World War II Lost. If so, their own peers will be best positioned to resist, and like Arthur Vandenberg in 1941, to call their bluff. Midlife 13ers will have little ability to influence the nature and timing of whatever crisis the boom will congeal, but will instead provide able on-site managers and behind-the-scenes facilitators, the ones whose quick decisions could spell the difference between triumph and tragedy. And I really honestly think this is what we're getting ready to witness in our history in the next year.
We've already had that too. And we are the backbone generation.
We are. And we are the backbone in this crisis as well.
And we don't get employers would much rather have a Gen X than a millennial as far as an employee.
Yes.
They don't want to hire us, but they'd rather have us as employees. They don't want to hire us.
We're also in charge.
Too much.
We're also in charge in a lot of places now.
A lot of places, yeah.
We're always showing up, absolutely. And but I think this is what they're talking about, the emerging leaders and from our generation. I think that's what we're going to see in the next election, like the next year, 18 months. Whoever emerges into the presidential candidate in the presidential primaries will be the next round. It has to be. I mean, like we said, it has to be a Gen Xer or a millennial. So they're gonna have to, once 2027 hits and the presidential election cycle starts and all of those people start popping up, you're gonna learn a lot about where we're at as a country and our generation as well. As to who, and it's gonna come up on both sides. We're gonna have them on both sides. So that's gonna be wild.
It's gonna start real soon. Real soon.
Yep.
It's going to start before the midterms.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the emergence of the leaders. The emergence of.
It'll start. We'll start to get a good idea of who the leadership is.
Yeah, I mean, the midterms are only 6 months away.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's going to start like real soon here, like summertime.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. We could be reading the fourth turning at the most perfect time for our generation.
Yeah, because it's happening.
All right.
Finish us out.
Take
us home.
Controlling the boom may indeed emerge as a 13er's most faithful life cycle mission. This will be the generation best able to deflect any boomer drift toward apocalyptic visions. In an age of rising social intolerance, the very incorrigibility of midlife 13ers will at times be a national blessing. The task of preventing disaster may well fall to life and liberty-loving 50-year-olds, pockmarked by hard experience, to tell zealous boomers to get real, to find cannier solutions that pose fewer risks, or that do less to erode personal liberty. A 13er may someday be the general or presidential advisor who prevents some righteous old Aquarian from losing the fateful lightning and turning the world's lights out. Those who sustain their alienation into midlife may find themselves the targets of a boomer-millennial alliance to root at 13er pessimism, fear, or greed from public life, much as Franklin Roosevelt rallied the GIs against the Lost trio of Martin, Barton, and Fish, or as Sam Adams rallied the Republicans against Liberty Tories.
Yeah, I don't think we have that to worry about.
Yeah, the capacity of circa 2020 50-year-olds to mellow the national mood and then their success in being heard by old boomers will hinge on the ability of these two generations to calm their earlier quarrels and build mutual respect. We're in trouble.
Yeah.
As they age in place, they will, like siblings, half remember and half forget how they behaved toward each other in earlier years. Whatever goes wrong in the crisis, 13ers will get more than their share of the blame. Whatever goes right, they will get less than their share of the credit. Even now, as 25-year-olds, they know the feeling. They had better get used to it. When you're reactive, it comes with the territory.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right. This is so much fun. Here we go, guys. I'm going to read this whole entire thing, and that's going to be our
up to page 418.
I'm on
You're not going to complete.
I'm going 416 to 418. I'm going to read the elderhood part of Gen X, and then that's going to be I'm going to call it a night at that point.
Sweet.
All right, here we go. Entering elderhood in an outer-driven era. Well, we're still in crisis, but let's see what they have in store here. The end of the crisis will hit this generation on the opening cusp of its era of national leadership and the beginning of its physical decline. In 2025, the oldest 13ers will be 64, the youngest 44. The crisis will have interrupted their peak earning years. Many will be a bit too young to be spared personal sacrifice and a bit too old to start life over again. History suggests 13ers will suffer a rough and neglected old age. Those who fail to provide for themselves will end up poor, but the standard of the era. When boomer leaders introduce a new youth focus into public benefits programs, 13ers can expect to find themselves passed over in the transition. Those who were counting on large inheritances from affluent silent parents may find them substantially taxed away by boomer-run legislators. Older generations will take little interest and may indeed see waste in letting 13ers get something for nothing. Even self-earned private investments may prove hazardous, thanks to some 21st century equivalent of the Liberty's Continental dollars and the Gilded's Confederate dollars. And this is great because our dollar is going to this is going to happen. Private investment. Okay, hold on. Old boom leaders eager to reward younger millennials for their public service may resort to huge doses of inflation, in effect wiping out the accumulated private wealth claims of midlife 13ers. Unlike boomers, 13ers will not have spent a lifetime preparing themselves psychologically for an aesthetic old age. Material well-being will matter deeply to them, and they will cherish whatever remains of their economic and social independence. Yet as they age, they will feel warmly towards younger generations they will mostly admire, and will not seek to improve their own standard of living at the expense of the youth. Rather, like the elder Gilded and Lost, 13ers will take a wistful pleasure in seeing their children shoot past them economically. The men in that's true. The men and women, if it can happen, I will be thrilled. The men and women who were once such wild risk takers will settle into a reclusive old age, engaging in pursuits that will be seen at the time as conventional, even fogyish. As has been true for all their reactive predecessors, the 13th generation will be the last to have fully come of age before a history-bending crisis. Thus, they will be perceived as and feel like relics from the past, with habits and values still rooted in some repudiated old regime. They will be crusty old conservatives, restraining the young from misjudging human nature through naive overconfidence. Sometime around the mid-2020s, 13er candidates will win a clear majority of national leadership posts. It's about to happen. 6 months. Their post-crisis presidents might well be jockish heroes like Washington, Grant, and Eisenhower, admired more for personality than for vision. Like the Gilded and Lost, 13er leaders will distrust debt and inflation as instruments of public policy. Indeed, they may be inclined to keep tax rates high to force the nation to produce more than it consumes, exactly the opposite of the national choices they will remember from their own youth. Under their leadership, America will turn its energy toward building the outer world, not towards cultural depth or spiritual fervor. But that won't be held against 13ers. In time, the maturing millennials will fault them for a very different reason. For being do-nothing obstructionists, barriers to the execution of the unfinished moral agenda of the now lionized boomers.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, a little off there. Like Increase Mather, Patrick Henry, and Mark Twain, the most popular 13er elders will warn against the danger of pushing too far and too fast in a cruel world rigged with pitfalls. But younger generations will not listen. In an outer-driven era, the can-do millennials will be too busy coaxing smiles out of their oh-so-adorable idealist babies. But will they have babies?
No. Apparently not.
That is the end of the 13er diagonal. Let's see what they have at the very end. We're not going to read about millennials.
Screw the millennials.
Screw them. The beginning of history.
The dawn of time.
Yes. I'll let you guys, if you haven't read it yet, read this last little part. So that, my friends, is all that Strauss and Howe have to say about the 13th generation in their book Generations. What do we think? I think that I'm going to give, for the most part, it was pretty great. I am going to give it some applause. It was
the Boomer Millennial Love Fest.
Like nice boomers.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 75 to 80% accurate.
I mean, it's pretty impressive in some places.
It really is, especially when they're doing.
I need to make that real quick. I need to make this a T-shirt. Don't call me a boomer. Sorry.
We got the other one. We were born on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I will make some t-shirts. I promise. It's coming. I know I keep saying that, but it is. I'm back on track getting some work done. So, oh, thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate you guys. Coming every week. I mean, the book club has just gotten bigger and bigger. We started out with like 200 or 300, and then it's like I said, I get about 500 to 600 checking in every week to watch, and it's all mine. You didn't invent it. Well, yeah. So I mean, it's been great, and it's opened my eyes to a lot of things about just how the world works, and it changes my experiences. Like I've said in previous weeks, just when I was in that funeral last week, and there was 5 generations in a room, and just thinking about how the event that we were experiencing was affecting everybody in a different way. And screw the millennials. Yeah, we're not even through a midlife crisis. I like that one too. We're not even through midlife crisis yet. Oh, well, that's kind of fun. Thanks awesome. For the Roku YouTube app. That's awesome. Next week, I am going to put a screening on Discord of Century of the Self, which I think is a really great companion piece to the 20th century part of this book. It's a BBC documentary from 2003. It's about 3 hours long. But yeah, if y'all want to go over to Discord with me and watch that. Also, when we start Fourth Turning next week, there are multiple interviews with Strauss and Howe from 1997 from when they published the book, and we're going to watch some of those interviews before we start the book. So next week, we're just going to kind of go over the introduction next week, the preface. We're going to watch some interviews with Strauss and Howe, and then we'll really dive into the book and the week after. So next week, Fourth Turning, we're going to do the preface, and let's see. Do I even want to do chapter 1? Go ahead and read chapter 1 if you want, but I have a feeling we're not going to be able to get through it. But preface in chapter 1, we'll try to get through, but with watching all the different interviews and stuff, we might not get through it. So it's just an introduction. Oh my goodness, Eclectic Deb. Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed it too. I'm glad you did. It's been very interesting. This kind of stuff just fascinates me, and I'm so glad that y'all are enjoying it and on board with me. And thank you for that, Super Chat. I really appreciate it very much. This is going to be awesome. Are you ready? Are you ready for it, Grendelson?
I am. No, but I'll be ready. I'll do some homework.
It's going to be so great. This book predicted the future in ways that they just laid the groundwork in Generations, but this one is going to just knock your socks off because they developed their theory. This is 6 years later after Generations, and they've developed some things and they've figured some things out. So it's good stuff. Thank you all very much.
Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. I will see you all next week to start the Fourth Turning. Everybody have a great night. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your super chats. Appreciate it. You guys are the best. I have a new video coming out. It will be out hopefully in the next day or two, but it's going to be like 2 hours long. So just be ready to, before you push play on it, just have some popcorn, a snack, or a beverage, and get ready. It's going to be a good one. It's all about our childhood, and it's going to be great.
Crystal wants to know how she gets notified on Discord stuff.
Oh, how do you get notified of stuff on Discord? Are you a member of the Discord? If you are a member of the Discord, I put out announcements. If not, that's a good question. I need to start posting on the community page. Do you guys ever see my YouTube community page?
I do. I look at it.
I try to keep, that's like my main hub of communication with my members and with my subscribers. I will commit to making that a little bit, making that better with Discord, so you can see what I'm doing over there. And every time I post on the community page about what I'm doing on Discord, I'll include the Discord link, so you'll be able to go right to it. You won't have to, look for it or anything like that. So go to my YouTube community page. That will be the place to find all of this stuff about Discord. Whoop, whoop. You shall figure out Discord. I love it. We watch movies and TV over there 3 or 4 nights a week. So tomorrow night we're watching Little House on the Prairie and Cobra Kai. It's awesome.
I just thought of you, Little House. That I saw a Little House on the Prairie Lego. Somebody had done a Little House Lego.
That sounds amazing.
As my own creation. Might have been an idea. See, they do a contest for every year for where they actually come official sets. Might have been one of those.
That sounds awesome. I would totally buy a Little House Lego set.
I know you. I bet you would.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. I will see you all here next week to start the 4th turning. Good night.
Wow.
Bye.